One violent waves of raw energy rattle through the deep, empty canyon. Then a terrifying voice commands the execution of anyone in their way. On the ground, our battered hero wonders how things got this bad. A towering orc proudly boasts that their beastmen territories have been sealed away for thousands of years. They were completely isolated until humans dared to invade them. Just moments ago, the terrified boy was resting inside a dark cave. Now this raging monster is screaming and threatening him with terrifying divine punishment. Sweating in pure terror, the boy wonders if he dies today. Just 5 hours ago, Uncle Nakazato was telling young Suyoshi to hurry. Approaching their trailer, the older man gave him a serious warning. Stay close, other scavenger teams are operating, and they will steal everything. If they slack off now, they won't salvage a single scrap of metal. Eating his noodles, Suyoshi asks why so many people are rushing to a basic dungeon. His uncle sighs, explaining this is just their harsh reality. Scavengers are everywhere now, so they are definitely not the only ones looking to get rich. A fighter suddenly warns that the elite warriors are arriving. Suyoshi instantly panics, quickly shoving the remaining noodles down his throat as fast as possible. One nervous scraper admits the cave entrance feels incredibly creepy. He dreads to imagine high-ranked dungeons if this average one is so intimidating. The front scout stops, pointing out several shadow monsters. Suddenly, a gleaming, gold-plated boot steps directly out from the glowing portal. An elite hunter clad in golden armor laughs arrogantly about the easy loot. He boasts about easy rewards, and his beautiful female companion smiles in agreement. One scavenger sighs, wishing he could fight, but his buddy cuts him off. He is stuck on cleanup duty because he failed his crucial awakening exam. Their leader bows very politely, asking the elite hunter for permission to enter. She coldly grants permission. Meanwhile, young Suyoshi Tsukushiro simply watches the exchange. He remains rational, observing their world with quiet confusion. Once the elite hunters finally defeat the monsters inside the cave, scavengers move in to pick up the remains. They live in completely separate worlds, and Suyoshi failed his test because of sheer weakness. He wanted to fight, but the commander snaps them back. They are running out of time and must gather at the entrance in 4 hours. Suddenly, one scavenger gasps at what he sees. He spots something highly valuable half-buried under the dirty cave floor. Suyoshi instantly grabs the item, realizing it is a broken shield piece. This small scrap is worth a lot of cash. Seeing this, Uncle Nakazato smiles. He calls it an incredibly lucky sign for them. The older man claims Suyoshi's deceased parents are watching over them from above. The boy digs deeper while his uncle reminds him of their time limit. They must assemble at the entrance in 3.5 hours. Knowing the deepest spots hide real treasure, Suyoshi keeps digging eagerly. Almost 4 hours fly past in an instant, but he finds nothing. Leaving with only one shield piece would be extremely disappointing. His uncle suddenly yells for him to wrap things up, and the boy sighs. This quest is almost done, but this tiny payout is just not enough. He cannot even afford Karina's hospital birthday party, forcing him to find another way. Suddenly, he spots a strange old well nearby, and his inner gamer instinct immediately tells him there is treasure. He smells treasure, but how did a well get inside this cave? Since it is bone dry, something highly valuable must be down there. Staring deep into the dark pit, Suyoshi remembers exactly what Tsukushiro promised to do for him. Tsukushiro promised to pay off Karina's entire hospital bill if he found an artifact. Down there, a brilliant gold ring gleams brightly on a massive skeletal hand. Our desperate young hero leaps straight down into the pit to grab the ring for himself. It is suspiciously easy, yet the excited kid screams in pure joy. High-tier equipment like this is known to boost stats instantly while selling for an absolute fortune. He struck gold, but with a shaking hand, he decides to slide it on. He plans to ask Mr. Nakazato to check his level later, but first, he wants to wear it. As soon as the metal slips onto his finger, he freezes in absolute shock. A blinding flash erupts, sending a sharp, agonizing pain straight through both of his eyes. The boy recoils, squinting in pain while panicking over what this item actually is. Suddenly, a creepy voice echoes. The Infinity Ring has officially recognized its new master. It warns that he can never remove it again, which triggers a wave of absolute terror. Horrified, he watches a dark, pulsing energy beam crawl across his arm. The dark void opens up right there, expanding rapidly like an active, hungry black hole. It slowly begins to swallow him whole while he screams out desperately to his friends. He begs his friends to save him, but vanishes without leaving a single trace. Nearby, a teammate catches Sayoshi's final scream, but he is already gone. They just saw him a single moment ago, so where could he have gone so quickly? One ally assumes he just ran off to explore another corner of the dungeon. Another companion chuckles, praising Tsukushiro for working so incredibly hard, like a dedicated, passionate hero. Meanwhile, the boy is hurled through a dark, chaotic void, screaming in terror. With absolutely no idea where he is going, he finally crashes down. Waking up, he is horrified to find himself bound and locked up alongside dangerous beastmen criminals. They are all scheduled for a brutal, divine execution. This is no ordinary death. A devastating bolt of divine lightning will soon vaporize them. Sitting up on his high throne, a bored king casually orders the ritual to begin. A massive orc steps forward, roaring to the crowd that a worthless traitor stands among them. He leaked crucial territorial secrets to the elves and humans and must die. Two guards drag the trembling traitor out while the furious onlookers scream and throw mud at him. His former brothers in arms show no mercy, yelling for his execution. The guards slam him violently onto the cold stone, waiting for the king to give the final signal. One massive executioner kicks the traitor hard in the back to keep him down. The lead orc shouts from the podium, announcing that all lawbreakers will face justice. He loudly declares that the mighty lightning hammer of the divine king will crush all offenders. This holy weapon will completely burn away the sins of any worthless traitor. The announcer proudly boasts that no criminal has ever managed to escape this altar alive. Bound tightly on the stone, the traitor knows this is his final sunset. A massive lightning bolt strikes down from above, and the traitor screams out in absolute, mind-numbing agony. As the lightning burns through him, the brave General Ryota watches closely from afar, screaming for the traitor's execution so loudly that even the lizards hiding in the rocks hear them. The general announces that the next punishment belongs to the very first man to ever invade their land, which is a direct declaration of war. That intruder is Suyoshi Tsukushiro, who desperately cries out that he only arrived here by accident and his sister is waiting for him. A massive ogre grabs him tightly in his giant fist and tells him to shut up, which panics our hero. Even more, crying silently inside his head, the young man desperately tells himself that he absolutely cannot die here, yet there is nothing he can do. He knows he is meant to be a hero, remembering that Karina still needs him, and honestly, can you blame him for being terrified? The furious crowd demands this pathetic kid be executed for somehow defeating their great beastmen. No mercy, the so-called sinner is thrown directly to the ground as the beastmen keep screaming for his immediate death. Hero tells himself again that he cannot die in this place, then suddenly leaps. Miraculously, he actually survives because right as he leaps, an incredibly powerful lightning bolt strikes where he was left speechless. This completely shocks the entire crowd of orcs who never expected this, and among them stands a very surprised, pretty cute girl. The charming girl cannot believe a simple-looking boy actually managed to dodge such a devastating blow. The shocked executioner cannot believe that the kid escaped a divine punishment lightning strike, which is considered inescapable. Meanwhile, the king sitting on his throne remains totally calm, quietly watching everything unfold. Suddenly, an incredibly angry Suyoshi Tsukushiro screams at the top of his lungs that he refuses to die here, calling them freaks. But of course his luck instantly runs out, and another strike hits his back, causing him agonizing pain. Roa just chuckles and says that lightning absolutely strikes twice, before announcing it is now the turn of the next sinner. The entire crowd of beastmen demands divine punishment for the red-haired maiden, who is instantly dragged down the aisle, but our hero absolutely refuses to die, so he activates his divine infinity ring selection system. Soon, the system completes its startup and identification and begins crafting his ideal physical form. Suddenly, something strange is noticed by the watchful king, who keeps a cold, serious eye on him. Then, the others realize he is still alive. Survival seems impossible, but this sight completely confuses General Ryota with his sharp fangs, who cannot believe the kid survived a hit like that. Meanwhile, the creation of his perfect physical form is 15% complete, but progress is already showing. The beastmen cannot comprehend what is happening, and even the red-haired captive is completely shocked. The form's creation hits 40%, triggering the scanning and activation of his divine eye skill. Begins, suddenly a mysterious voice calls to our hero, who becomes completely emotionless and starts walking forward. Everyone around him freezes in place, watching him in dead silence, not even knowing how to fight. Suddenly a golden-hilted sword flies straight at him, but he doesn't even pay attention to it. Now, his divine consciousness skill and absolute cloning activates, bringing his perfect form nearly to completion. Nearby orcs freeze, staring at this shocking sight in absolute bewilderment. They finally realize this kid is anything but ordinary. Tsukushiro silently advances, as the progress of his perfect physical form reaches 80%. The announcer gasps in shock, calling this entire situation absolutely unbelievable. Aside from the Divine King, nobody has ever gotten this close to the hammer. A gray-haired bystander watches with shining eyes, wondering if he really intends to lift it. Our fearless hero ignores them all, only wondering why he was summoned here. Just then, his physical form finishes transforming, instantly triggering a massive shift. The legendary status of the Chosen One is officially applied to him. Fierce bolts of lightning crackle outward, throwing everyone around them into a panic. Overflowing with incredible power, the brave youth raises his hand high. He lets out a deafening roar, his eyes burning with pure anger and hatred. The terrified beastmen sweat profusely as they watch, far too scared to interfere. Meanwhile, Tsukushiro senses the divine hammer calling out to him directly. Without a single moment of hesitation, he reaches out his hand to take it. He opens his palm, ready to grip the sacred weapon's hilt as firmly as possible. With a sudden, lightning-fast motion, his fingers lock tightly around the handle. He decides to unleash its legendary strength, swinging the weapon with massive force. This bold display shows the cowering beastman exactly how serious he is. Suddenly, the system announces that our hero has reached level 3. However, the weapon's power remains at 0, meaning no flashy effects activate yet. A stunned red-haired beauty watches in sheer shock, unable to believe a human did this. The surrounding orcs quickly realize they cannot let this outsider touch their sacred relic. Even though it is an unbelievable sight, they refuse to accept it. Legend says whoever lifts the weapon becomes the supreme leader of all beastmen. This must be a mistake, they think. Meanwhile, Tsukushiro notices his body feeling stronger. He decides to inspect the holographic status screen floating right before him. Skimming through the details, the young man is left slightly surprised. He wonders how on earth he managed to reach level 3 this quickly. Suddenly, a massive dark shadow looms right over him, but he barely registers it. He simply keeps reading his notifications, completely focused on the glowing display. He figures he must have stumbled upon some kind of divine selection system. Right then, a devastating impact slams into the ground, shattering the earth nearby. A fierce orc general is behind this, warning the boy not to touch their sacred hammer. "Get your filthy hands off our sacred weapon," the angry warrior fiercely commands. The watching beastmen place all their hope in General Road to stop this human. The general admits he has no idea how a mere human survived their trial. Escaping divine punishment and lifting the legendary hammer is simply impossible. Keeping a stern gaze, he demands that Tsukushiro put the weapon back immediately. He must surrender and prepare to face his swift execution. Suddenly, Tsukushiro gets a notification that his divine eye skill has activated. This passive ability is a massive help, especially since he has never used one. It allows him to see the hidden details of anything in his field of vision. Right before him stands a level 84 beastman who is a master swordsman. Suyoshi stared at his opponent, wondering if this strange insight came from the legendary system. The giant warrior reached for his blade, demanding how a lowly human dared to stand against him. Suddenly, the cold blade tip pressed right against the helpless kid's face as the general promised a quick, painless death. The panicked youngster screamed that there was a massive misunderstanding, while knowing deep down he stood no chance against a high-level warrior. Wide-eyed and terrified, the boy stared up at the giant who showed zero mercy. An angry Ryota barked at him to shut up, swinging his heavy weapon while the sweating kid begged to be heard. The red-haired lady knew this orc would obliterate the boy with one swing. After all, Ryota was one of the 5 elite generals serving the Beast King. The resulting clash was so massive it triggered a violent mushroom-shaped shockwave. The beast warrior instantly unleashed a follow-up strike against Suyoshi, who strained every muscle to block the onslaught. Ruined stones flew in all directions, but fortunately the young man avoided getting hit as the debris missed his face. He managed to block General Ryota's strike, but that weapon was brutally heavy, leaving his trembling arms completely numb. The stunned giant could not believe this fragile human had successfully withstood his powerful crushing blow. Looking down, he sneered that the kid just got lucky with his weapon, but there would be no miracles next time. Suyoshi, struggling to stand, desperately repeated that he was from another world and begged him to listen. The ruthless orc ignored his pleas and charged right back into the fray, swinging a massive fist as he closed the distance. This rush succeeded, and the terrified kid was caught in the iron grip of General Ryota, who decided to launch his target skyward to finish him with a devastating earthquake attack. Just then, the absolute cloning skill suddenly activated, selecting Ryota's heavy weapon skill to copy, allowing Suyoshi to feel the giant's very heartbeat. This strange power was completely new to Suyoshi, who still had no idea what was happening. The general hurled him into the air while the young fighter clutched his weapon, desperately planning his next move. Flying headfirst toward the ground, the kid gritted his teeth, searching for a way out of this mess. He realized he needed to physically touch the chest of his massive opponent, who was waiting below, completely off guard. At that exact second, Suyoshi jabbed 2 fingers directly into Ryota's chest before the giant could even react. Strangely, the fierce general turned affectionate, blowing playful air kisses and dropping the boy from his grip. A dazed Suyoshi began to plummet toward the hard ground, wildly flailing his arms to break his fall. A list of copied skills floated around him, but he could only select one. Making a quick choice was nearly impossible. Meanwhile, the startled orc raised his weapon to defend himself, asking in a panicked voice what the kid did. The shaken beastman tried to launch an attack, but immediately fumbled his opening. Seizing his chance, Suyoshi activated the cloned Heaven Shaker skill for a powerful counterattack. Gritting his teeth, the boy rushed forward with everything he had, screaming that he would not die here as the general braced for impact. A completely stunned Ryota gasped at the impossible turn of events, demanding to know how a mere human was wielding his own signature move. Ever landed on the general. A split second later, a massive blow connects. Stunned by the sight, the crowd of beastmen and the red-haired captive freeze in place with their mouths wide open, buried under a massive cloud of thick dust. The general coughs loudly, but somehow stays on his feet. Coughing hard, he slowly refocuses, ready to fight again, staring directly into his opponent's eyes with a cold gaze. The general says he is completely unharmed. Meanwhile, a system notification alerts Suyoshi that being at level 3 without a proper class or weapon, he cannot hope to damage this enemy and needs to upgrade his skills. This reality check completely embarrasses the young fighter as he stands there, frozen in place, totally clueless about what his next move should be. His opponent wastes no time, gripping the wooden hilt of his sword even tighter to end this match. Fueled by sheer rage, he charges forward to strike, refusing to let this pathetic brat get the upper hand. Suddenly, the furious Beast King leaps from his throne, ordering an end to this chaos. The crowd of orcs is stunned to see their own king join the fray, leaving the red-haired beauty feeling even more panicked. A violent explosion erupts, kicking up a massive wall of dust and smoke. Fighting to withstand the shockwave, Suyoshi grits his teeth and stands firm. Behind him was the Beast King, kneeling on the ground with his head bowed. The exhausted ruler kneels silently, a chilling sight for everyone nearby. Terrified, the beastmen clutch their heads in absolute disbelief, unable to accept that their invincible leader has been defeated. Rising back to his feet, the king looks at Suyoshi and declares the divine hammer has chosen him. Grabbing the kid by the shoulders, the ecstatic king claims this is a sign from the gods themselves. Smiling warmly, he explains that after all these years, this young fighter is the only one the hammer has accepted. Facing his people, the king announces that no one else can lift this massive weapon except for him. The crowd stares back in utter confusion. Not knowing how to process such a wild claim, the king continues. If this kid is truly their destined ruler, they must let him grow and prove himself. The confused beastmen murmur among themselves, unable to grasp this bizarre turn. After all, the boy does not look like them. Standing behind, General Ryota reminds the Beast King that Suyoshi Tsukushiro is just an ordinary human. The gray-haired king immediately turns to Ryota and calmly asks for clarification. He asks if the prophecy ever specifically stated the savior had to be beastmen, adding they cannot ignore the hope of their entire tribe. The general agrees, admitting the prophecy did not mention race, but adds, there is one major catch. The king ignores the idle chatter completely and asks the protagonist for his name. The young man introduces himself as Suyoshi. So the king says that if he accepts this heavy burden, they will too. However, he is far too weak right now, so he must train hard and grow stronger. Within 1 year, only then will they see if he is truly worthy of leading them. The king issues a dark warning: if the kid fails to return in 12 months, they will use the magic mark to hunt him down and end his life. The leader seemed pleased with the terms, asking the slightly confused boy for his response. But looking over the massive crowd of beastmen, Tsuyoshi remained completely confident. He boldly announced his agreement to the proposal. Nearby, the blue-eyed beauty trembled. Fighting back tears, she begged the young warrior to grow strong and win his freedom. Tsuyoshi remembered she was being punished next, and he definitely couldn't allow that. He activated his divine eye skill, which initially hid her name and high status. But she whispered that staying alive was what mattered most, urging him onward. She begged the young fighter not to waste this divine opportunity, but then something hit him. Tsuyoshi was absolutely stunned to see her level was 72, wondering why she was being punished. Despite the shock, he simply smiled, knowing it was time to say his goodbyes. He prepared to leave and begin his intensive training, raising his hand with a grin. Our hero waved to the stunning girl, thanking her for the incredibly valuable advice. He completely agreed with her. This really was his golden ticket to survival. He had to stay alive, no matter what, to eventually return home to his sister. He turned to the Beast Master and accepted the deal, but with one crucial condition. This sounded interesting. Smiling, the gray-haired beast leader leaned in. He asked what it was. Tsuyoshi pointed right at the red-haired girl. He demanded that she join his team and accompany him on his dangerous journey. Utterly shocked by this sudden turn, she couldn't believe he actually chose her. Tsuyoshi smirked to himself, silently noting that they were now finally even. Late that night, as the camp quieted down, the young warrior lay awake. He kept reflecting on the mysterious disembodied voice he had heard earlier. Staring closely at the mysterious infinity ring on his hand, he knew it started everything. It was stuck on his finger, but it granted him this insane cheat power. Now his only question was how on earth he would find a way home. Suddenly, a girl's voice called out to her master, startling Tsuyoshi. He didn't realize she was addressing him. It was the adorable blue-eyed beast girl, Tsukushiro. She stated that she wanted to serve her savior. In his mind, he was thrilled. Hearing this cute animal-eared girl call him master felt incredibly satisfying. Blushing slightly, the young warrior noted that she had saved him too. He suggested they support each other from now on, making her blush deeply. She whispered that he had no idea what this second chance meant to her. Gently taking her savior's hand, the girl spoke in a calm, soft voice. She explained that no one had ever thanked her or protected her before. Looking directly into Tsuyoshi's eyes, the cute girl asked to call him master. This caught him completely off guard. Blushing deeply, she continued. She declared that he was her miracle, and she would devote her life to him. Feeling slightly flustered, Tsuyoshi told the cute girl she could call him master. Relieved, the charming beauty suggested it was time for them to move. Since the night was getting quite late, she kindly warned him to watch his step. He silently followed her, completely lost in his thoughts about this bizarre new world. Her gentle, caring attitude honestly brought a warm smile to his face. This magical parallel universe was already full of surprises for our young hero. He was incredibly grateful to have found such a loyal and noble companion. But his heart tightened as he remembered his little sister, Karina, waiting back home. Alert, the infinite passage is locked for 24 hours. Tsuyoshi wonders if he would ever return if he fell into that infinite void again. After all, that glowing, terrifying gateway was the only reason he was even here. Staring down at his glowing ring, the young man whispers that it is finally opening. A sudden beacon of light ignites his desperate hope of getting back home. The transfer starts. Suyoshi Tsukushiro grins with absolute relief. But behind him, a beautiful woman catches a weird sound and calls out. She asks her master if he is okay, but teleportation is already ripping him away. His muscles tense. He knew this journey would be a total nightmare. Seconds later, the fighter blinks, realizing he's wearing his original protective gear again. Panicked, he frantically runs his hands over his body to check. He searches for any injuries, praying that he has truly made it back home. He looks down, the infinity ring is still on his finger. He quickly summons his system screen and breathes a deep sigh of relief. All those overpowered abilities he built up are still fully intact. Still level 3, but why is the divine hammer still right here with him? Tsuyoshi figures his gear synced because it was stored in his inventory. Having it tucked away in his mental vault made all the difference. His thoughts shatter when his older brother yells for him to get moving. He urges him to hurry out before the cave collapses. Stunned, Tsuyoshi stammers. Why they are waiting here and what could have possibly gone wrong. Something is wrong. He spent 5 long hours in that other world. Yet his buddy claims he was just sitting here this entire time. The guy yells for him to crawl out before he gets completely trapped. A companion tosses a thick rescue rope down into the dark pit. Tsuyoshi grabs it tight and begins to haul himself up, hand over hand. As he climbs, the pieces finally click together in his mind. Time had stopped. This feels exactly like some crazy manga plot where the world stands still. He wonders if time in that other world freezes too when he leaves. Then he remembers that gruesome skeleton hand reaching from the well. Who did this powerful infinity ring actually belong to in the first place? Dragging himself over the edge, he starts muttering to himself in disbelief. His buddy looks confused, but Tsuyoshi just flashes a knowing smirk. He asks if it is true that the awakening test is tomorrow. His mind flashes back to that brutal day blood dripped down his face. The cold rain washed it away as he ran through the chaos. No giving up, he carried his broken sister despite the absolute physical agony. Yet he refused to stop. Devastation lay everywhere as people ran for cover. Survivors cower in the rubble, praying the massive beast passes them by. The Titan thrashes through the city streets, relishing the utter destruction. Through the dust, his sister whispers that she cannot feel her legs. He forces his heavy, exhausted feet to keep moving forward, desperate to carry her to any safe haven. Soaking in sweat, she weakly asks if their parents are still alive. He has no answer. Behind them, the monster roars, crushing another building. Tsuyoshi just keeps walking, watching his hope slowly turn to ash. Agony, pure hellish agony, but Tsuyoshi knew he had to get his sister out of danger immediately. The danger zone was collapsing. His eyes mirrored the absolute horror of it. Ruins lay everywhere. His thoughts clung desperately to his beloved parents. Tears spilled down. The devastating truth was finally starting to settle into his mind. They were gone. It felt completely unreal, a nightmare he could not escape. A merciless monster had descended upon their home, leaving nothing but brutal slaughter behind. Total denial. The young boy could not accept this sudden, cruel reality. Just him and his sister. Sobbing, Suyoshi Tsukushiro tried to run. He tried to reach his parents, but a heavy hand suddenly grabbed him, blocking his path. A soldier stopped him. He could not let the boy die here. Shaking him by the shoulders, the man yelled that stopping now meant certain death. Do not look back, he screamed at him to stay away from the falling debris. Going back meant that both he and Karina would be slaughtered. Calm down, the soldier begged, knowing they stood zero chance against the shadow. Tears blinded his eyes. Tsuyoshi could only cry out in vain for his mother and father. We must move, the soldier urged him to carry Karina to safety immediately. She had no feeling in her legs. Later, a clinic nurse questioned Tsuyoshi. She asked if he really planned on taking the grueling awakening test after work. The kind nurse carefully tucked Karina into bed, telling her she needed plenty of rest. Quietly leaning over, Tsuyoshi softly asked his sister if her feet still hurt. Karina whispered that she was used to the constant pain, but the nurse simply sighed. Severe nerve damage was constant. She needed heavy, daily medication to cope. Desperate, Tsuyoshi activated his divine eye to inspect her paralyzed legs. The system alert flashed, revealing that 80% of her leg nerves were dead. Crushed under the heavy rubble, there was absolutely zero hope of recovery. Talk about a soul-crushing revelation. Tsuyoshi felt a cold wave of absolute helplessness. He knew she suffered in silence. She deserved to live a normal, happy life. She deserved to smile every single day. After all, she was his only family. He could not watch her suffer. He swore to get her walking again. He would get her back on her feet, even if the odds were practically zero. Staring quietly out the window, he repeatedly told himself there had to be a way. Giving up was never an option. He would search every corner of the world. If he could become an elite, licensed hero, he would gain access to classified information. Perhaps then he could find a cure, that was his ultimate goal. Filled with a quiet, burning confidence, he made his way to the testing headquarters. This was the official, heavily fortified hall where candidates took their high-stakes awakening exams. Inside, a staff member smiled, offering warm congratulations to a newly certified hunter. She handed him his brand-new official emblem, minted fresh from his successful test. Standing nearby, a proud, ecstatic mother instantly offered to throw a massive celebration party. The boy beamed with pride. Meanwhile, the lead scientist turned to Suyoshi Tsukushiro. He was retaking the test, determined to pass after failing his first try. Gesturing toward the glass room, the scientist told him to place his hand on the scanner. He wondered silently if the boy's latent powers had shifted. Suddenly, a grim-looking fighter in military gear stepped directly into the room. "We will know soon," he muttered, watchfully observing the boy's tense stance. If a test fails once, the result is always the same because this device is incredibly precise. It measures experience with high accuracy. He had seen plenty of stubborn people before. Just like this stubborn protagonist standing before him, but the young man did not care at all. He did not care at all. Our daredevil remembered the last guy only reached level 3. That guy had level 3 with a combat power of just 3 points, looking at the gauge. Now that he also reached level 3, he was guaranteed to become a hero. But how? High his real combat power actually was, only the machine could show. The young fighter knew he had to take this seriously, then offered his hand to the meter. Right then, his perfect physical form activated, giving him a massive boost in many ways. The testing process went incredibly fast, and soon the device flashed with his final score. Soon the device displayed level 3 on the scoreboard. Just then, a tense employee of the center felt a sudden earthquake that completely shook him up. Meanwhile, the completely calm and poised Suyoshi Tsukushiro simply kept his hand on the machine. As a result, an output of 5,400 points appeared, instantly shattering a 30-year-old level 3 hero strength record. Our rookie instantly took first place in terms of combat power among all level 3 heroes, which left even him completely stunned. Smiling quietly to himself, he admitted that he felt a massive surge of strength, but he never expected to be this powerful. Absolutely thrilled, the strong warrior jumped up, realizing everything was going according to plan, and he was definitely going to be the absolute strongest. Soon, he grew curious about the actual power of the divine hammer he had recently acquired, right from his inventory. Our hero pulled the hammer out, only to receive a sudden notification. Due to several reasons, the weapon's full potential could not be unleashed. He realized that he would only be able to use it for a single second, but decided to test just how much his combat power would shoot up. He then placed his hand back on the gauge, tightly gripping the hammer handle with his other hand. Suddenly, his eyes flashed red as the power of the divine hammer activated. Every drop of his energy evaporated in an instant, putting his entire body under incredible bone-crushing strain, looking deadly serious. He urged them to finish the measurement faster, but complaining did not help. Clenching his teeth in pure agony, Suyoshi Tsukushiro demanded to know his updated combat power. Meanwhile, people on the streets began to panic, feeling a massive earthquake without understanding what on earth was causing it. The machine then warned that a power reset began, making it impossible to measure the power. Right then, a panicked scientist burst in, screaming that the power grid failed due to extreme overload, ordering everyone to evacuate immediately. In front of him, he saw a shriveled, completely exhausted young man and asked in utter shock who he was. Walking down the corridor, our protagonist admitted he never expected his power to drain in a single second, deciding not to use the hammer again until he grew much stronger. Still, there was no reason to worry, since he was now officially a hero with an emblem hanging proudly around his neck. Sometime later, at the training grounds, the new recruits were introduced to Gaia, the seasoned hero in charge of their training. The strict instructor immediately warned them that their lessons would be things are going to get brutal. Everyone must give their absolute best. The fighters all agreed instantly, yet they wanted to start right away. They wanted action. Meanwhile, Suyoshi thought the combat instructor looked weak. A level 9 trainer with only 1,200 points, truly disappointing to see. As for Gaia, the annoyed man silently cursed having to train these brats. He would rather explore D-rank dungeons instead, but he had a job. Tomorrow they enter the abyss. There, they will finally discover their true classes. The anxious rookies hesitated. Shouldn't they practice and learn their skills first? Entering a dungeon unprepared felt like suicide. They wanted real training. The stern mentor snapped back. They did not have the luxury of time. Becoming a hero meant surviving real combat. That is where power is forged. If they could not handle the heat, they were welcome to leave now. The sharp Suyoshi smiled. He knew Gaia was just venting on them. Still, heroes are only human. The quiet boy then thought of his goal. A gorgeous girl was waiting for him. The moment the portal opened, he would rush straight to her. That evening, back inside his quiet apartment, the young warrior struggled to remove his ring while listening to the news. An earthquake had struck. He knew it was time to return and grow. He needed to level up, pick a class, and find better gear. Suddenly, a massive, swirling portal opened right before his eyes, giving the young warrior his ticket back to that magical fantasy world. Inhaling the strange air, he smiled. He was finally back in action. He sat on the ground for a while, realizing his surroundings were exactly the same. Even his clothes were untouched. His modern gear remained perfectly intact. Tsuyoshi realized time and items carried over seamlessly between the two worlds. Just then, a breathtakingly beautiful companion approached him with a soft smile. Her sheer charm immediately left the young master completely flustered. A sudden comical nosebleed erupted, but he ignored it and stood proud. Clenching his fist, he asked the lovely lady to guide him forward. The gorgeous girl beamed with joy, excited by his high energy and passion. She warned him that a pack of level 3 goblins lurked nearby. They are cunning and vicious monsters, meaning he must stay highly alert. Tsuyoshi smirked inwardly. If these pests were truly that wild and dangerous, then they were the ones who should be absolutely terrified of him. Eagerly waiting to test his divine selection system, he prepared to fight. Crouching low in the tall grass, his beautiful partner urged him to hush. They had to tread lightly so they wouldn't wake the sleeping sentries. Tsuyoshi pointed out that she was level 72 with immense combat power. She gasped in surprise. How did he know her high stats? He smugly reminded her that he was her master for a reason. He asked her to show him how real high-level warriors fight. She hesitated, warning him that her help would cost him valuable experience points. But since he insisted so much, she simply could not say no. Telling him to watch her movements closely, she stepped out of hiding. The blue-eyed warrior drew her razor-sharp blade and charged straight ahead. She carefully locked onto her targets, calculating her next move. With cold precision, she struck a blow that instantly ended the clueless sentries. Witnessing her flawless instant strike, Tsuyoshi started clapping his hands, telling her that those movements were incredibly cool. For a warrior of her rank, while she humbly thanked her kind master, her beautiful blue eyes shone with genuine warmth as she looked at him. She added that she always gives her best, leaving him even more impressed. He eagerly asked if she could teach him, but her response shut him down. She explained that instant strike was strictly for high-level warriors, making it impossible. Besides, he had not even selected a profession yet, but he remained confident. He declared he would become a warrior too, planning to copy her skill anyway. Without stressing over restrictions, Tsuyoshi made his final decision and chose his class. He officially became a warrior, though his weapon was still that massive divine hammer. The blue-eyed beauty promised to do everything she could to support his growth. Since she inspired his choice, she swore she would guide him all the way. She offered to help him level up, gently taking his hand to grab equipment first. Tsuyoshi was starting to love this new world, finding it incredibly exciting. Mostly because of his gorgeous companion, but their peaceful moment was suddenly cut short. They looked over to the side, realizing a hostile invasion had just begun. Just a few meters away, 2 aggressive goblins were fiercely glaring at them, ready to tear them apart, but Tsuyoshi kept his cool and stepped forward. He quickly sized up the enemies and decided to handle them completely alone. He asked his lovely assistant for a silver dagger to test out a theory. She froze in pure shock, looking at him with immense worry. She immediately warned him that recklessly drawing their attention was a terrible idea. But the determined young man barely listened, eager to unleash his hidden strength. He had not fully tested the raw power of his legendary Sky Shaker yet, so he decided these goblins would be the perfect test subjects for it. Taking a deep breath, the fearless warrior locked eyes with his targets and lunged forward. He swung with immense force at the monsters, who froze in absolute panic. His strike triggered a massive explosion, completely obliterating the green creatures. His stunned assistant realized even a full team of 6 elite heroes could never defeat same-level monsters with this kind of effortless speed. Suyoshi was definitely starting to love this incredible divine selection system. He was certain he could easily reach level 4 in a single night. His guide apologized for the lack of gear and offered some basic weaponry. But he told her not to worry, saying his basic weapon worked perfectly. Still, she reminded him that they desperately needed to find some proper armor. Reality set in as Suyoshi realized that going without protective gear was suicide. He was far too vulnerable to deadly strikes and needed solid protection fast. Fortunately, he also discovered a massive trick regarding his divine consciousness inventory. Unlike standard game limits, items stored here could be used anywhere. This meant he could access these items in both worlds, giving Suyoshi an edge. Right now, he only had 2 slots, with one holding his locked divine hammer. Even though he could not wield it yet, he knew this inventory was priceless. He could grow with skills and levels, but adding more gear slots was still a mystery. Mainly because he could not get rid of that heavy divine hammer, he looked over at the girl who nervously asked if something was on her face. Honestly, he just liked her. Stunning figure, the embarrassed fighter quickly played it cool, telling her everything was completely fine. He claimed he was only checking if she was keeping up, but shortly after, she stops. The cautious girl told Suyoshi to turn back as she gripped her sword tightly. Right on cue, a pack of hungry level 4 goblins lunged at them. Their gross tongues dangled as they charged. She warned him that deeper areas meant tougher monsters. Suyoshi just smiled, asking if that meant they would also get way more experience. Ready to fight, Suyoshi stepped forward. He was completely fearless. He told his companion to stay back so she wouldn't steal his hard-earned experience. A snarling goblin mocked him, calling him a brainless fool who had no idea what he was getting into, but Suyoshi didn't care about their trash talk. He swung his heavy wooden club with absolute force, leaving no room for games. Before the monsters could react, several of those ugly creatures were instantly crushed. One goblin hit the ground hard, and our hero kept a cold, piercing glare locked on him. He did not look away for a second. His wooden club was now planted firmly deep into the back of the overconfident beast. It was a brutal end for the monster. Just like that, his experience bar got a nice, fat boost. Suyoshi cracked his wrist, noting that while higher levels gave better points, this wooden club was just too fragile to survive many more fights like this. His amazed companion watched in absolute awe as he handled that cheap weapon so effortlessly, easily wiping out 3 targets in a single blink of an eye. As they pushed forward, the goblins grew in numbers and levels. But wait. Tsuyoshi's raw power made those numbers completely pointless. The excited young lady kept cheering him on as he dominated the battlefield. Still, Tsuyoshi found it crazy how fast he could grow even with low base points. Back when he was a scavenger, heroes always complained about the terrible payouts while the Alliance kept forcing players to form teams. He remembered how the greedy guild kept all the best loot for themselves, leaving nothing for the workers who actually risked their lives down there. But in this new world, he could keep every bit of experience he earned. Slaying these creatures was raising his level faster than ever before. At this pace, he knew a boss fight was right around the corner. Right on cue, a pair of glowing red eyes watched them from the dark. Peeking from behind a boulder, a tense Tsuyoshi wondered if this was his target. A massive beast with thick root hair loomed ahead, radiating pure, unfiltered aggression. His companion looked on with worry, her blue eyes filled with genuine dread. She warned him that the boss was corrupted by some dark energy. This immediately struck a chord with a very surprised Tsuyoshi. He wondered if this darkness was the exact same plague from his old home. The shadow-clad monster looked identical to the monster that had slaughtered his parents. The girl added that this corrupting dark force multiplied the beast's power. She warned him that its raw strength was completely shrouded in mystery. With no other choice, she prepared to step up and handle the threat herself. Boss, but our determined hero firmly declared he would deal with this goblin himself. Goblin with his own hands, whether right now or down the line, the young warrior made solemn promise to himself he would eliminate everyone responsible for the brutal murder of his parents. Armed only with a baton, he jumped straight into the deadly fight. This fierce fighter carried an absolute hatred for the deep darkness that ruined his young sister Karina's life. Now his burning gaze held nothing but cold fury and a desire for vengeance, while his assistant stood by, knowing better than to try and stop him. Right away, he landed a massive, crushing blow directly onto the back of the goblin, leaving the creature completely stunned by the sudden assault, but in an instant. The young warrior got violently tossed aside, though his opening strike dealt solid damage. Barely holding onto consciousness, he crashed face first onto the hard, unforgiving stone floor. And his clothing tore from the brutal impact. Our exhausted and battle-worn hero shook with agonizing pain. Standing up was nearly impossible. The vile monster instantly seized the moment, slinging out its slobbering tongue to end the match for good. The dark goblin had no intention of stopping. Already, its long, smelly tongue was hurtling directly toward the defenseless young fighter, collapsed on the ground. But at the very last second, his fiercely loyal companion rushed forward to save him. Swinging her sword directly at the beast, pulling himself up, Suyoshi Tsukushiro told himself that there was no way he would let this monster kill him too. His eyes flared with absolute fury as his legendary physical ability suddenly activated. His eyes flared with that familiar rage as his ultimate physical form unlocked, his veiny fist clenched with insane power, preparing a devastating strike for the final blow. Our muscular hero then rotated his injured wrist, which took some damage during the struggle. Then the game system warned him to stay alert as massive energy began to gather. Inside his incredibly tense right arm, he had to be extremely careful. Fueled by pure anger, our fearless fighter charged forward, throwing a bare-fisted strike. With veins bulging under the immense strain, he didn't care about the danger, yelling out that if he didn't have a weapon, he would make his body one. Suddenly, his back and shoulder muscles bulged to several times their normal size, burning with a desire to avenge his parents as fast as possible. The boss monster desperately tried to kick back, but his insane punch was already too fast to dodge. Without a single second of hesitation, Suyoshi Tsukushiro struck the beast with his right fist, dropping the health bar instantly to 0. His blue-eyed assistant shielded her face from the resulting shockwave, completely trusting her master. Suyoshi Tsukushiro quietly watched the massive explosion triggered by his finishing blow. A massive explosion ripped through. The giant goblin was officially history. Its giant remains rested silently on the ground, showing absolutely no signs of life. Now rising to level 4, our exhausted hero stood covered in a pool of sweat. He firmly declared his resolve to wipe out all evil forces. His worried assistant immediately checked on his arm, deeply concerned for her wounded comrade. Suddenly, a critical system warning popped up. His arm was facing a serious threat of tissue necrosis, making him realize he overused his power. By concentrating all that heavy energy into one single limb, his mortal body simply could not handle the extreme magical pressure he had unleashed. Suddenly, Tsuyoshi Tsukushiro collapsed. He completely passed out. The pink-haired beauty panicked, quickly laying his head on her lap to comfort him. She grabbed her medical kit to patch him up. An hour later, a sweet sight appeared. 2 adorable little bats were playing together, getting along wonderfully under the trees. Suddenly, the young fighter stood up, saying he already felt completely recovered. Hearing this warmed her heart. Tsukushiro soon noticed something interesting about healing. Healing was slower here but far more thorough, hinting at an ancient medical history. This fantasy world's pharmacology was clearly ancient. Stretching, he got back up. He reassured his assistant he was fine, making her incredibly relieved that the medicine worked. With him back on his feet, the young lady decided it was time to claim their reward. Tsukushiro excitedly skipped forward, realizing he had totally forgotten about the loot. He sheepishly admitted that the prize had completely slipped his mind. Leaving the massive goblin carcass behind, he received some unexpected system news. Because he broke the cave record by defeating the boss, he secured a full reward. Just then, his pink-haired companion spotted a mysterious chest tucked away in the shadows. It was a legendary dark treasure chest, the kind rarely seen even at high-end auctions. An excited Tsukushiro approached the chest, feeling his hard work had finally paid off. Without wasting any time, the young man eagerly popped the latch open. Inside lay a dark goblin kit, which his assistant assured him would be extremely useful. He shut the wooden container, his mind already analyzing all the possibilities. A clever plan formed in his head, but he had exactly 1 inventory slot left. Right on cue, the system popped up, asking if he wanted to store the chest itself. The young fighter accepted immediately, wanting to test a quick storage theory. He wanted to see if the entire kit would fit into that single remaining slot. The dark goblin kit slotted in perfectly, ready for him to use at any time. This brought a satisfied grin to his face, which did not escape his companion. Seeing his smug expression, she curiously asked him what was so funny. Tsukushiro claimed he was just admiring the loot, then asked if she could sew. She proudly replied that she had been making her own outfits since childhood. The two sat down together on the soft grass to get to work. Under the glowing moonlight, she skillfully began crafting his brand new gear. Before long, his talented companion finished stitching a custom tank top. He praised her work and immediately slipped on the sleek new top. It fit him perfectly, and she smiled, happy to be of use to her master. Tsukushiro suggested they camp there for the night, knowing he could now safely return home. It was the perfect opportunity to slip back into his own reality. Back in his real world, he collapsed happily onto his favorite soft bed. He definitely deserved a good rest after all that frantic dungeon crawling. Back then, Tsukushiro had to wait patiently for his partner to sleep before leaving. This run yielded some seriously impressive loot, giving him a solid reason to smile. However, he realized time in the other world kept moving even while he was gone. He needed to catch some actual sleep before tackling the dungeon again tomorrow. Morning came and the system asked if he wanted to equip his new gear. Eager to see the stat boosts, he immediately accepted the gear change. The transformation was instant, completely morphing his appearance on the spot. Surprisingly, this dark set granted him a bizarre skill called Roaring Tentacles. Once activated, it forces enemies to scream in agony while frozen in place. Suited up, Suyoshi could barely believe such insane skills actually existed. Adjusting his wristbands, he knew this was going to be pretty fun. But there was a catch: he couldn't show this gear to other heroes. In this brutal world, heroes regularly killed each other for rare loot. Exposing his gear was a death sentence, and he knew it. A total rookie rocking high-tier gear would raise way too many red flags. Thankfully, the system chimed in to announce a handy disguise feature. It asked if he wanted to camouflage the armor as ordinary clothes. He immediately agreed, knowing a secret card like this was priceless. Now safe, a relieved Suyoshi Tsukushiro realized he still had a few minutes. He decided to grab a quick snack before his scheduled meeting. But suddenly, his newly bought cell phone started ringing loudly in his pocket. On the other end was a panicked hospital nurse, sounding completely terrified. She gasped out that loan sharks had just broken in and snatched Karina. Panic set in as Suyoshi tried to make sense of the nightmare. He had taken out a loan for his sister's bills, but paid everything on time. Desperate, he begged the nurse to keep those monsters away from Karina. But she could only tell him to hurry before the line went dead. Blind rage took over, and his grip completely shattered the phone into pieces. Nobody, absolutely nobody, gets to touch his precious little sister and walk away. Keeping his dark goblin gear disguised, Suyoshi rushed straight to the hospital. Meanwhile, inside the ward, a terrified Karina was surrounded by thugs. She sobbed, begging the cruel bastards to just leave her alone. But one thug sneered, claiming her brother missed his payment deadline. It turned out they only lent the cash because their boss wanted her. A pretty girl like her would fetch a massive price on the black market. Karina wept, screaming that her brother would never sign such a dirty contract. She called them dirty frauds, but the thugs did not care. They laughed, saying her brother's tiny payments barely covered the interest. The lead creep grabbed her chin, warning her to cooperate quietly. If she behaved, things would go easy, but if she fought back, well, they would have to break her before selling her off into slavery. Heavy, echoing footsteps suddenly began approaching the door from the outside corridor. And trust me, they are about to regret ignoring those heavy footsteps. Boom, the heavy metal door was ripped completely off its hinges. Standing there in absolute fury was Suyoshi, ready to tear them apart. He looked at the trash and told them to prepare to die. In his hands, the solid door was crushed like a piece of paper. Beneath the disguise, his dark goblin armor pulsed with terrifying energy. Seeing her beloved brother instantly brought a wave of relief over Karina. The thug leader smirked, amused to see their useless debtor show up. He sneered, asking why Suyoshi was making such a scary face. The bastard mocked him for caring about a useless, crippled sister. Before he could finish, Suyoshi shattered his jaw with a brutal punch. And his glasses shattered. The creditor had seriously pissed off the cold-blooded hero, sending him flying right along with his knocked-out tooth. With that move, Suyoshi got a massive boost to his leg strength, thanks to that his speed skyrocketed. Meanwhile, Derzilla crashed straight to the ground dragging the entire table down with him, a bald henchman immediately stepped in to protect his boss, lunging straight toward the young hero. This beefy attacker took a sharp, vicious swing at Suyoshi, hurling insults at him, but it did not intimidate our fighter one bit. Suyoshi's eyes burned with absolute fury, demanding payback for his sister they had dared to bully. Suddenly, Suyoshi caught the bald thug's arm, making him howl. Pain, he was totally trapped. Suyoshi swiftly twisted the arm of his attacker, who immediately fell to his knees, screaming in pure agony. The furious leader of the predators started screaming insults, shouting that he had never lost a fight in his life. Next, he swiftly drew a heavy combat pistol, asking if Suyoshi seriously thought he could defeat the Blue Snake Gang. The furious boss immediately opened fire, pulling the trigger without hesitation, as his bodyguard tried to hold him back. Watching this, a terrified Karina was worried sick about her brother, who was standing in the very center of danger. The metal bullet tore through the air towards Suyoshi Tsukushiro, who stood completely still without even batting an eye. Then our hero incredibly caught the flying bullet, leaving only a minor singe. The sight completely shocked his blue-eyed little sister, who never expected her brother to possess such insane, superhuman abilities. The gangsters were absolutely speechless after seeing Suyoshi catch a bullet with his bare hands. Talk about a cheat code. It turns out Suyoshi had dramatically upgraded his hand strength, making them completely impervious to any ordinary weapons. Suyoshi calmly reminded the thugs that he was a hero, and the three terrified bandits clung to each other, trembling as they stared at him. Meanwhile, a worried nurse rushed in with the police, warning that armed thugs had broken into the room to threaten the patient and her brother. But when they entered, they saw the creditor politely asking Suyoshi to repay his debt, adding that their boss would get involved otherwise. The bruised gangster then smiled nervously, apologizing for the trouble before the trio quickly began backing out of the hospital room. They politely bade the nurse farewell, leaving her utterly baffled by the sudden change in attitude. Outside, the gang leader decided to tell the boss that Suyoshi had become a level 10 hero, meaning they could easily crush him. Having survived the scare, Karina double-checked that the thugs were gone, while her older brother apologized for rarely visiting her lately. Suyoshi explained he had been drowned in debt all this time, but now that he was an official hero, those worries were gone. This completely stunned his sister. She asked if he was serious, and Suyoshi assured her that his status would be official once he cleared the dungeon later today. He also knew he had to sell his starting gear because of the heavy $60,000 he borrowed from the Blue Snake Gang for her medical bills. Suyoshi Tsukushiro was confident their struggle would end today because he was about to officially become a hero. Shortly after, a group of rookie candidates gathered. A level 9 warrior named Gaia gathered the recruits, announcing that first, they would have to hand over every single piece of hero gear found in the cave. Tsuyoshi knew the Hero Alliance would simply turn a blind eye to this, but he also realized there was nothing of value in this low-level dungeon. The smug instructor then announced that he would be going in with them, so they just needed to follow his orders to stay safe inside. Then the greedy guide demanded an extra 20,000 yen from each recruit. After laying out his strict terms, he arrogantly asked if they all understood. The recruits stayed quiet, realizing they had absolutely no other choice but to comply. Disgusted by this blatant extortion, Tsuyoshi stepped forward and asked a simple question. Why pay him if he was already taking all the dungeon loot anyway? A nervous recruit whispered for him to shut up, warning that Gaia was dangerous. Tsuyoshi quickly understood that this thug had a powerful guild backing him up. Even so, the young man had absolutely no intention of paying a crook. While the gray-haired guide made it clear his rules were non-negotiable, he mockingly suggested the kid could take the exam completely solo if broke. The other recruits gasped, knowing that even elite heroes avoided solo dungeon runs, and they immediately wrote Tsuyoshi off as a completely suicidal fool. Wait, is he actually serious? Tsuyoshi calmly declared he would go in alone. His companion stood frozen in disbelief, while Tsuyoshi began loosening his hands. The anxious examiner quickly stepped in, pleading with him to change his mind. He warned that nobody had ever attempted this solo because of the extreme danger. But the young hero simply smiled, saying his decision was already final. A recruit quietly wished him luck as he took a bold step forward, while the trembling checker watched him enter, convinced the kid was insane. Once Tsuyoshi's solo request was officially confirmed, he teleported into the dungeon. He opened his eyes in a strange forest, looking around with deep curiosity. He had only ever seen cleared dungeons, so this was a fresh experience. Here we go, a strange rustling sound echoed right behind him. A vicious dark goblin crept out from the shadows, ready to strike. The monster lunged forward, swinging its heavy wooden club with brutal force. But our level 4 warrior spun around instantly, completely unfazed by the ambush. With a lightning-fast block, Tsuyoshi easily disarmed the goblin mid-swing. He shattered its stance and immediately countered with a powerful, heavy strike. His fist slammed directly into the monster's chest, throwing it backward. Tsuyoshi admitted the goblin was decently strong for a low-level mob. But compared to his current stats, the creature was utterly pathetic. He noticed that the experience points in this world felt entirely different. No wonder normal heroes struggled so much just to level up around here. Remaining entirely fearless, he challenged the rest of the pack to fight. Right on cue, a massive horde of goblins swarmed out of the trees. Tsuyoshi quickly threw on his combat gear, excited to test his limits. Suddenly, a set of thrashing, raging tentacles erupted from his body. The swarming monsters stood zero chance against these massive, slippery limbs. With nowhere left to run, Tsuyoshi prepared to wipe out the entire pack. He launched another attack, sending the terrified goblins scattering everywhere. Showing no mercy, the nervous researcher noted that almost an hour had already passed. If the kid survived this long, things were looking perfect. Headlines would soon rave about this fearless rookie who fought alone. No sane person would ever take this test alone, but the screen suddenly updated. The solo test results flashed, showing that Tsuyoshi had officially passed. Stepping out of the portal, the tired young hero immediately asked where to shower. Gaia soon walked out of the portal, boasting that everyone owed him. Without his help, they would have rotted inside that dungeon before doing anything. But another hunter pointed out that Gaia had ordered them to stay back. He had not given any actual instructions, prompting a teammate to tell him to relax. They should just be happy they survived, but Gaia reminded them of the price. Normally they would owe 40,000, but he gave them a discount to stop their whining. He cut the price to stop their whining, then quickly answered a radio call. He snapped that he was busy, but the update he received was totally shocking. The arrogant mentor's face went completely pale as he listened to the shocking update. The rookie he dismissed as completely useless had cleared the entire test alone. He immediately confronted the young hero, who was busy washing his face. How could a level 4 rookie do that? He demanded to know if Tsuyoshi used high-level gear. No beginner had ever cleared this difficult exam completely on their own before. Brushing back his wet hair, the young man calmly replied he just wanted his money. Giving up 20,000 was not an option, which immediately enraged the proud mentor. He grabbed the boy by his shirt, proudly introducing his high-level guild. He demanded answers, but Tsuyoshi remained completely unbothered by his threats. He coolly noted their guild was weak, since this guy was only level 9. Your combat power is only 1,200 points, which made him absolutely furious. Channeling energy into his fist, he prepared to punch the cocky rookie. Suddenly, the young man reached out and effortlessly caught the incoming punch. He asked if the mentor really thought those pathetic level 9 fists could hurt him. The astonished Gaia stared in absolute disbelief at the crazy display. How could a mere level 4 kid possess such unbelievable speed and strength? Tsuyoshi tossed his hand aside, leaving the stunned man completely speechless. Behind his back, he secretly reached for a weapon. The cunning trainer gripped his blade, preparing for things to turn ugly. A worried Tsuyoshi urged the man to calm down before things went too far. Ignoring the warning, the coach lashed out with a hidden dagger, demanding answers. He demanded to know his secrets as the sharp blade struck the kid's arm. But the kid was fully protected by his hidden goblin powers. His enhanced body easily absorbed the impact, leaving Gaia utterly dumbfounded. His weapon literally shattered to pieces against the boy's durable, tough skin. He immediately accused him of wearing some kind of invisible, high-tier armor. A tense Tsuyoshi quickly realized he had accidentally exposed his secret power. He knew he was supposed to keep his unique skills a total secret. Revealing his power to anyone in this world could prove extremely dangerous. Chuckling nervously, the trainer demanded to know what incredible treasure he found. Back in the cave, the sweating kid acts his heart out, crying about how terrified he is. Still sobbing, he claims that without that dagger, he never would have survived. He could never have made it, leaving Gaia to stare at him in utter bewilderment. Before Gaia can speak, the test monitor suddenly walks right into the clearing. He politely apologizes for the delay before handing a certificate over to Suyoshi Tsukushiro. With this certificate, he is now an officially recognized hero. To Suyoshi, this inspector is a savior, knowing Gaia won't start trouble in public. The calculating gray-haired mentor watches the departing kid, a cunning glint in his eye. Mentor immediately realizes that he has stumbled upon a truly massive catch. Suyoshi silently walks away, lost in his own thoughts before suddenly stopping. His system has boosted his power way beyond normal limits. And yet going toe-to-toe with high-level foes is still incredibly tough. Later that night, Suyoshi lies awake in bed, thinking deeply about that mysterious beast girl from another world. He also knows he's on Gaia's radar now, meaning he must tread extremely carefully. But get this, trouble never sleeps, and it is coming right to his doorstep. Two shadowy intruders creep down the dark hallway, stopping right outside Suyoshi's door. These thugs from the Crazy Wolves Guild prepare to force their way inside. One bandit tells his partner to immediately lock the target down with binding magic. They are confident that Gaia's tip will lead them straight to the boy's secret treasure. His partner warns him to quiet down, or the kid might hear them coming. If they make too much noise, they risk losing the element of surprise. Grinning, the mage channels his mana to shatter the door's locking chain. He melts the remaining latch with a sudden, localized burst of intense flame. But suddenly, the door is kicked wide open from the inside by a furious Suyoshi. He's more than ready to deal with these rats who dared invade his home. The lead thug glares back, calling Suyoshi a cocky brat before threatening to crush him. He immediately unleashes a devastating skill called Heaven Shaker, aiming right for the kid. Suyoshi tenses up as an incredibly heavy impact rushes straight toward him. He realizes this level 10 mage brought by Gaia is way out of his league. Combat stats are great, but a massive level gap can easily overpower them. In this world, sheer level advantage can make up for any lacking stats. To him, this feels like a low-level player trying to solo a high-level boss. He wonders if rushing headfirst into battle with just his current gear is suicide. There's no room for error here. If he fails, he's dead. The arrogant mage boasts that his enchanted cloak's defenses are now fully active. He promises to beat Suyoshi down and strip him of everything he owns. Without a second thought, the bald mage unleashes a deadly torrent of flame. Suyoshi feels the scorching heat, but his magical resistance suit protects him. Having that high magic defense is what made fighting those monsters a total breeze. Knowing he can't win a prolonged battle, the young hero prepares to strike. Neither the bald mage nor Gaia ever expected him to do something this reckless. Without a single hesitation, Suyoshi dives out. With absolutely no other way out, leaping to the ground is his only choice. Relying on his goblin defense for a soft landing, he prepares his legs. Midair, he actively channels power into his limbs to absorb the impact. The system chimed in to remind him that the rest of his body was currently defenseless. Suddenly, a massive brawler materialized just a few meters away from him, wearing a clearly hostile look. This level 12 Crazy Wolves Guild member immediately launched an attack. On our hero, he instantly realized he was ambushed, this ruthless fighter. Grinned, asking if the kid really had not expected to see him here before. Swinging both fists forward, with an incredibly heavy strike, the brave young warrior was sent crashing downward. He smashed onto the hard pavement with a loud impact. While falling, he boosted his full body strength, but still got hit by a brutal knee strike, though his goblin armor at least allowed him to somewhat mitigate the damage. Enemy guild members quickly rushed over. The kid struggled to stand up, one of them mockingly asking if he was still breathing. Their mage immediately demanded to know what spell he used, questioning how a complete low-level beginner could pull that off. The furious level 4 warrior clenched his teeth in anger. Vowing silently that he was going to slaughter every last one of them, he immediately activated his dark goblin gear, along with his special roaring tentacles skill to finally unleash absolute chaos. Countless dark tentacles erupted, wildly whipping out all directions, catching his enemies off guard without causing them to panic. There, Warlock cast a binding spell that instantly slowed down the low-level target for 1.5 seconds, putting massive pressure on our hero. Suyoshi, who felt himself grind to a sudden, forced halt, the enemies sneered, mocking how even with that crazy ability, a rookie still had obvious flaws before leaping forward. But wait, our hero suddenly received a system alert showing the ring's cooldown was over and the infinite passage was finally open. It was a perfect escape route. Instantly, a massive blast erupted, blowing his enemies away in every direction as the young man triggered the portal. He screamed one final warning, swearing that he would return stronger to destroy them. Panting in a cold sweat, he realized he had actually safely escaped. Deciding he needed to unlock stronger skills, he turned his attention to his cute little assistant sleeping right beside him. Just staring at her gorgeous face triggered a massive nosebleed. He simply could not contain. This stunning beast girl was still sound asleep on the floor, gently rolling over onto her other side. This gorgeous girl carried the sweet scent of cherry blossoms, which Suyoshi highly appreciated. Still, there was no time to enjoy this moment because he had to deal with that bastard guy. He reminded himself of his own world's issues and how his first order of business was to design a perfect plan to boost his levels and skills. By morning, his lovely assistant finally woke up and stretched, happily saying she had slept wonderfully for once. Smiling, Suyoshi lied that he also had a great night's rest, even though he stayed awake. Before asking the blue-eyed girl for another costume, the pretty lady explained that to unlock new skills, he needed to acquire a skill scroll. To get one, he had to enroll in a martial arts academy. After a brief journey, the two reached the beastmen tribe where the academy was located. Up ahead, someone was already waiting. An instructor named Zerudin explained that to gain entry, a student must first reach level 6 and pass a test. She explained that for now, Suyoshi could not join them. Clad in his new shirt, which had a heart embroidered on it, the kid felt crushed by the sudden rejection. His guilt-ridden assistant quickly apologized, desperately making excuses about how she had spent years training in isolated caves and did not know their rules. The young guy shrugged. They needed to level up, and she said the cave worked. The vile beastmen sneered, claiming their tribe would never accept a pathetic weakling and the nameless mongrel traveling with him. Belle felt completely devastated, believing everything was her fault. Her master had been so incredibly kind to her that she had forgotten her low status, only bringing him trouble by staying around. Not wanting to hold the young man back, the heartbroken girl made a silent decision. She would explain everything to him and say goodbye, but the muscular fighter was not about to tolerate the insults of this arrogant, long-eared beast. But watch closely, this beastman has no idea who he is testing. Clenching his fist, Suyoshi spun around and marched straight toward the scoundrel, startling his companion. Without hesitating, he grabbed the bearded beastman by the collar, demanding to know if he should rip out his tongue for spewing such utter trash. The stern Suyoshi ordered the arrogant thug to apologize to his charming companion right this instant, but the beastman spat that she was just a nameless half-beast, nothing more than a stray. Hearing this, Suyoshi finally realized that his assistant was truly a half-beast with absolutely nothing of her own. The orc warned the kid not to get cocky just because the king had acknowledged him, threatening to crush him if he showed any more disrespect. The beastman then declared he would apologize to the girl if Suyoshi passed the exam, though he was sure a mere human could never do it. But the fearless warrior only stared silently into the eyes of the suddenly nervous beastman, still gripping his collar. The cute blue-eyed girl worried deeply, begging her master not to risk his life just for her sake. Slowly, the young man finally let go of the shaken beastman, pulling his hand back as he stood his ground. Looking intensely into the orc's eyes, the brave warrior declared that this charming girl's name was Sakura, demanding he memorize it. Talk about a legendary move. His confidence drew admiration from the sweet maiden, who never expected her master to gift her such a beautiful name. With a smirk, the confident fighter added that when he passed, the bearded bully would apologize to her. Suyoshi then wrapped his arm around Sakura, telling her it was time to go, while she gazed up in silent adoration. As they walked, the young warrior learned about a powerful fox beastman, confidently declaring that he was more than ready to face him. Glowing with deep warmth, the beautiful girl softly asked her master why he chose Sakura. Scratching the back of his head, a slightly flustered Suyoshi asked if she did not like it. The panicked girl immediately squealed that she absolutely loved it, and her question was about something else entirely. Bowing her head in embarrassment, the shy cutie wondered how he had come up with such a beautiful name. Suyoshi explained that she always smelled of sweet cherry blossoms, making it the perfect fit for her. Suddenly, the overjoyed girl lunged forward and wrapped her arms tightly around his neck, completely catching the young man off guard. She tearfully thanked her master over and over for the beautiful gift. She loved the name and proudly called herself Sakura. Tsukushiro told her it was nothing special. But the happy girl just kept hugging him with a bright smile on her face. Tsukushiro then suggested they get moving, heading into the nearby cave to level up. She wondered if her maiden's dagger would actually fit his style. Tsukushiro replied that it was way stronger than any cheap goblin club. Even if it was not top quality, he swung the blade with ease. He laughed, saying that compared to his heavy hammer, everything felt incredibly light. Up ahead, starving monsters with glowing red eyes were already waiting for them. These fox beastmen were not very smart, but their extreme speed made them dangerous. Tsukushiro told Sakura to stay back because he wanted all the experience points. She was just thrilled that he finally called her by her actual name. Without waiting, the young warrior rushed forward, eager to test his new weapon. Sakura quickly warned him that these beastmen were known for being incredibly sneaky. She told him to stay careful and avoid making any reckless moves. Slashing with his silver dagger, Tsukushiro saw their speed, but he remained unfazed. The beasts attacked. They threw themselves at him from every single angle. But Tsukushiro fought back fiercely, refusing to give them even a moment to breathe. Suddenly, a wave of sharp shards flew straight at him, threatening to tear him apart. Raising his hand, he concentrated his physical energy and blocked them instantly. The monsters lost all their confidence, freezing on the spot in utter shock. Tsukushiro calmly stared them down, telling them they were not even on his level. With power like that, he claimed they wouldn't even touch him. Seeing him easily outclass, these enemies left Sakura completely speechless with admiration. He really was the legendary hero who had managed to lift that heavy hammer. Darting across the cave, he realized speed mattered far more than raw power here. The battle was over. Tsukushiro wiped his blade with a sigh. He noted that leveling up in this strange world was incredibly fast. There was no reason to constantly fight others just to gain some experience. Still, his main target had maximum combat power while he was only level 12. Fighting with a level gap that huge sounds like a total suicide mission. No way he could win. A direct clash would end in total disaster. To survive, Tsukushiro realized he had to bridge the gap with his 4 skills. He turned to Sakura and explained they needed to push him to level 6 first. Once he hit that mark, he would bring that arrogant boss down to its knees. With a plan in mind, they kept moving deeper into the dark cavern. Before long, they encountered a level 7 dark fox pacing in the shadows. The giant steel sword hung on its back, instantly catching Tsukushiro's eye. He wondered if he could actually steal the weapon right from his opponent's hands. The length and build of that giant sword looked absolutely perfect for him. Smiling, Sakura teased him, asking if he wanted to claim it. Tsukushiro replied that he was just hoping it might drop after the fight. She laughed, explaining that most monster equipment in this world could be looted. However, rare drops always depended heavily on the quality of the item itself. Sometimes you just have to keep grinding until the weapon finally drops for you. This random drop chance made the game system much clearer to Tsukushiro. On the fox's back was a black sword with a tiny 6% chance to drop. Tsukushiro knew getting his hands on that blade was going to be a massive headache. It was pretty frustrating, especially since the weapon was absolutely perfect for him. Suddenly, a system alert popped up. The exchange shop had finally activated. Now he could trade for powerful items, provided he met the right conditions. He realized he still had plenty to learn, but only one special scroll was unlockable. This particular scroll was incredibly useful, boosting his drop rates by a massive amount. It increased all item drop chances by 30% for a full minute and was ready for exchange. The clever Tsukushiro quickly put 2 and 2 together. His kill count from both worlds combined, which sparked a brilliant idea. If he traded for 3 scrolls at once, the total drop rate would skyrocket. It would shoot all the way up to 96%, filling him with pure joy. With odds like that, he was completely certain the sword would drop instantly. He immediately exchanged the 3 scrolls, meeting the requirements in a flash. Traded out of items, his confidence was still through the roof. Tsukushiro told Sakura that he was ready to get stronger and claim his new weapon. Seeing his fearless attitude, Sakura could not help but admire his sheer bravery. Gripping his silver sword, the young warrior told his partner to stay focused for the fight. The hungry beast's glowing red eyes locked onto him as he prepared to make his move. Tsukushiro lunged forward, charging headfirst into the bloodthirsty monster. The giant fox bared its massive fangs, snarling furiously at the daring challenger. Swinging its freezing black sword, the beast aimed to slice him in half. But Tsukushiro was too quick, dodging to the side with his usual flawless reflexes. Even so, he felt a sudden, biting chill radiating from the massive weapon. Sakura warned him that the fox's sword carried a nasty frost debuff. It would slow his movements and rapidly drain his precious stamina. But she also revealed its hidden weakness. The beast was absolutely terrified of fire. Tsukushiro immediately coated his blade with a combustible mix of tar and ash. The silver sword instantly ignited, bursting into brilliant, blazing flames. Now watch, he leaps back into the fight with absolute confidence. His fiery blade actually put some real fear into the giant beast. He landed a heavy strike, which deeply angered the dark beast. Trusting his skills completely, Sakura yelled out the monster's key weak points. She yelled for him to aim directly for its armpits and vulnerable neck. Tsukushiro memorized the advice and rushed in for another strike. His fiery blade sliced cleanly right into the beast's left armpit. The giant fox couldn't block it in time, letting out a painful shriek. Its health bar took a noticeable hit, but the creature was still standing strong. Then a system notification revealed that hitting weak spots triggered a coward state. This special status allowed Tsukushiro to deal double the normal damage. Talk about a massive power trip, Tsukushiro immediately kept pressing forward. He locked his eyes on the target, determined to end this fight quickly. Sakura cheered him on, saying it would be much easier to finish the beast now. She advised her master to dodge in different directions and keep landing hits. Still nerved and fully focused, the young warrior braced for his final thrust. Suyoshi gets it and thanks her for the crucial tip. He immediately begins to dart from side to side, landing strikes on the completely confused beast. He realizes he would have easily died without Sakura's advice. Owing her big time, minutes later, the exhausted dark fox starts panting heavily, barely able to stand on its feet or put up any kind of real defense anymore. The ruthless Suyoshi gets ready to deliver the final blow, aiming directly at its neck, just as she recommended, channeling 60% of his total strength into his grip, providing 200% recoil. On impact, the system alerts him that he hit a weak spot and dealt triple damage, completely breaking the enemy. And excited Sakura is proud of her master, who, despite his low level, made this fight incredibly epic. Next, the agile fighter with a silver blade in hand leaps forward once more, shouting that this will end right now, midair. He activates the Sky Shaker skill, smashing the beast's head completely. Off guard, his adorable assistant starts jumping for joy, cheering that the warrior fought with incredible honor throughout the entire clash. In his own head, Suyoshi smiles, loving how fast and efficient this battle went. He almost forgets to use the drop rate scroll before the kill, but he quickly fixes his blunder, boosting the drop rate to nearly 100%. He watches the drop feed with absolute focus, craving that legendary sword, and look at that, his very first weapon drops right away, granting him 3,000 experience points. But even with insane physical power, Suyoshi is still vulnerable to enemy attacks he has also never seen. Such a powerful blade, he knows he can easily crush the crazy wolf trio. With this new sword, now he wants to hit level 6 before dawn. He asks Sakura where else he can go to farm experience as fast as possible. She mentions he can use a nullification scroll to shorten the respawn timer of monsters inside these caves and dungeons. She has a few on hand but suggests taking a quick break first, noting she has healing potions ready. Soon, the two make their way outside and use a scroll, instantly resetting the dungeon cave to its original state. Slinging his glowing new black sword over his back, the battle-hungry warrior declares that he simply cannot wait to fight again. Sakura also notes that certain weapons have special effects to boost physical strength. Meanwhile, Suyoshi fights another dark fox. He remembers the king's hammer in his inventory, though currently he can only unleash its true power for 1 second. If he can just increase that limit, he will be truly invincible. This second boss fight starts on a shaky note. As the terrified fox is actually trembling, Suyoshi looks at the beast and asks what is wrong with it, teasing that he already wiped out its entire family and reached level 5. Then, the endless dungeon resetting grind begins. letting them farm a massive, unlimited amount of experience points. After yet another reset, the terrified Dark Fox literally hands over the sword itself, which looks incredibly bizarre. Sweat dripping, Suyoshi tells her he is almost finished, charging forward to make one last explosive dash. Swinging his black sword, he effortlessly slaughters several more monsters, finally reaching. Standing atop a pile of corpses, the fighter leveled up. Overnight, he regenerated his stamina multiple times to harvest a fox set. A cold glare, he quietly added that he would finally get his revenge on the offending academy members. Nearby, two beastmen chatting by the campfire were busy discussing how the young human could never join their academy, even at level 6. Suddenly, the bearded beastman spun around toward a bold male voice. It was Tsukushiro. Confident and ready, he made a sudden announcement. Level 6 was successfully reached. Standing right before them, he completely shocked the beastmen, who could not believe he grew so quickly. The armored warrior demanded they wake up the examiner without delay, refusing to wait until morning and demanding they prepare Sakura's trial. Minutes later, a massive beastman examiner arrived and demanded answers. He told the challenger not to waste time, but Tsukushiro immediately countered that he met every requirement and wanted his rightful vault skills. The orc examiner openly scoffed at the kid's greed, stating that even level 6 was no guarantee of passing, right as a companion whispered to him. Hearing the quiet whisper, the massive beastman froze in utter shock. The boy leveled up from 4 to 6 in a day. Tsukushiro once again said that if he passed, the bearded beastman would apologize to Sakura. The elder asked where that confidence came from, muttering that for a human, passing their trial was nothing but a bad joke to their people. But the academy head stepped in, stating that since the youngster had reached level 6, they could not turn him away from the exam. Passing meant he would earn the right to use the academy's vault. The head claimed the test was simple, requiring him to complete one single task, just cracking a heavy stone slab with one hit. Unfazed by this, the brown-eyed warrior asked if that was all. The bearded orc realized the head had decided to test him with a magic stone that even a level 10 warrior would struggle to crack. The leader boasted that breaking this stone was easy for any beastman. He stepped forward to demonstrate, confident the kid would fail to even leave a scratch. Regular stones were different, but this was necessary. Since the boy was so annoying, they had to use this trick. First, the massive chief gathered immense power into his fist, knowing that at level 20, he had to give this trial his best. He delivered a heavy punch, leaving only a tiny crack behind. Sweat dripped, the grinning chief challenged Tsukushiro to try his luck. The serious fighter did not waste words, stepping up to try. Sakura believed in him. She quietly wished her champion the best of luck. Surpassing his level limits was easy due to his physical form. He focused on massively amplifying the force within his fist. Within seconds, an unbelievable amount of energy condensed in his hand. His absolute physical power surged, channeling 50% of his energy directly into his right hand, while the onlookers muttered it was impossible. It was a breeze for beastmen, but completely different for weaklings. Yet, a highly focused Tsukushiro ignored their empty words and prepared to show his true strength. Headmaster Ambo felt sure this scrawny kid wouldn't even scratch the massive measuring stone until he was suddenly forced to shut up. Our hero struck the measuring stone so hard it completely shattered into pieces. The surrounding beastmen stood frozen, staring in absolute disbelief with their mouths wide open. They even had to shield their eyes to protect themselves from the exploding stone shrapnel that was never supposed to break. Scratching his head, a thoughtful Tsukushiro quietly admitted that he might have overdone it slightly, though he expected a much tougher challenge. Beside him, Sakura cheered happily, realizing her master could finally enter the fabled skill vault. A stunned orc guard nervously asked Ambo if he saw that insane feat. Neither of them could process how a human destroyed their sacred testing stone. Tsukushiro calmly looked at the chief, asking if this meant he officially passed the academy entry exam. Sweating bullets under the pressure, the giant ogre shrugged, claiming he blinked during the strike and declaring the test a failure. Holding back his annoyance, the calm young man spread his arms, asking what other trials they had lined up. A highly irritated Ambo barked out that they were moving on to the iron bar test, a physical exam where the challenger had to bend a solid chunk of reinforced metal with raw power. Ambo knew even seasoned beastmen struggled here, but with effortless, terrifying strength. Tsukushiro twisted the iron like Play-Doh, utterly breaking the chief's mind again. Desperate, the headmaster declared a final test, survived 10 seconds against their elite champion. Ambo felt absolutely certain this human brat was finally going down. But watch this, their ultimate champion gets slammed over Tsukushiro's hip instantly. Staring down the speechless headmaster, the young warrior pointed out he had easily cleared 3 tests in a row, suggesting they call it a day. The stunned, bearded chief had to agree, unable to comprehend this human's power. Stepping back, Tsukushiro gently pulled Sakura close behind his protective frame, demanding that the old beastman apologize for his earlier insults, even though it wounded the giant ogre's pride. A true beastman never breaks his word. Dropping to his knees, Ambo offered a sincere apology to the sweet girl, admitting he deeply regretted his harsh, mocking comments. Flustered by this, the gentle girl waved her hands, saying she didn't mind his attitude, and urged him to stand up. However, Tsukushiro stepped in and insisted that she deserved this formal gesture, gently telling her to just accept it. Reassured by his words, the lovely girl chose not to argue with her master, and smiled warmly, squaring her shoulders with a touch of newfound pride. The blue-eyed beauty officially accepted the giant ogre's apology. They soon made their way to the legendary skill vault, where Ambo warned that he could only retrieve a single skill scroll. Our young hero shrugged it off as a joke, but the chief maintained a stern expression. Explaining the academy had strict rules, he added that Tsukushiro had only 3 minutes to locate the scroll, and failing to exit in time would mean instant expulsion. The confusing rules baffled the young fighter, so the giant chief stepped up to explain. This martial arts academy stands as the proud symbol of the land, and to protect the vault, their strongest mages locked it down with powerful barriers and ancient seals. Tsukishiro admits this task is far tougher than expected, while Sakura adds that every prestigious academy secures their vaults with identical magic. The academy head tells him he can enter now, but issues a final warning. He warns the kid not to dare steal anything, because the barrier will instantly expel him, reminding Tsukishiro that he has exactly 3 minutes to choose a skill and get out. Tsukishiro's eyes dart around. In pure excitement, stripping off his heavy gear, he immediately starts scrambling up the massive shelves to scan the scrolls. Sakura mentions this is her first time inside the legendary vault, and she is surprised by how fragile the protective seals actually feel. Tsukishiro wants to trigger his absolute copying ability, but finding a worthy skill is tough. He also wonders if Sakura would even comprehend how his copy skill actually works, since it requires touching an opponent's heart to steal their techniques. Still, the focused young warrior knows he has to start if he wants to utterly crush those 3 pests from the crazy wolf guild. Clutching the scroll with both hands and channeling his absolute focus, Tsukishiro activates the process, revealing the details of a powerful shield strike technique. This move delivers a crushing blow that leaves targets completely dazed and is perfect for vanguard fighters. Still, Tsukishiro does not actually own a shield. Sakura says she has no use for it, instead offering to show him something else, an assault step technique designed for long-range shooters that dashes 5 paces away to evade attacks. She then presents a battle cry scroll for melee fighters, which unleashes a fierce roar to boost ally morale, but none of these interest our young hero. Feeling the pressure with only 2 minutes remaining, he starts digging faster. As Sakura asks if he has checked the counterattack option, this technique temporarily reflects negative status effects, making it incredibly useful for any frontline warrior. But after examining all the remaining scrolls, Sakura thoughtfully concludes that none of them are truly worthy of Tsukishiro. With only 1 minute left, our anxious protagonist has still chosen nothing. He realizes he can only view these high-tier abilities by shattering their seals. Tsukishiro suddenly asks Sakura for any spare mana potions, telling her to take cover behind a solid pillar. The startled girl immediately obeys her master, trusting him completely. Now, our daring hero unleashes a massive surge to shatter the seals. Outside, the academy head suddenly senses a bizarre disturbance unfolding inside his precious vault. Violent shockwaves of raw magical energy begin radiating from the sealed chamber. Without stopping, our clever main character decides that shattering every single seal simultaneously is his only real way out of this bind. Tsukishiro's Unbelievable power leaves Sakura completely speechless as he continues to defy all expectations, although he lacks the refined experience to fully manifest. The Divine Hammer, a single split second of activation, is all Tsukishiro truly needs. He pours every ounce of his soul into this final, desperate breakthrough. This massive power surge was visible even from outside the Academy vault. The stunned leader could not believe this was the strength of a mere challenger. Inside the vault, Tsukishiro's eyes glowed terrifyingly. His gaze burned red as he gripped the hilt of the Divine Hammer. Watching him closely, Sakura nervously realized she never would have believed this. She had to see this incredible power with her own eyes to believe it. With the hammer's power fully activated, the brave warrior was ready. He yelled that he would shatter every single seal and slammed it down. A blinding blue light erupted from the very top of the vault tower. The flash was so intense that the Academy leader had to cover his face. Moments later, the exhausted hero collapsed to his knees, completely drained. Wild energy waves pulsed through the room, bending entirely to his will. Rows of blank skill scrolls sitting on the wooden shelves were finally exposed. Every single seal had vanished, proving his outrageous gamble had actually succeeded. Stepping out from her hiding spot, Sakura stared in absolute shock. She could not believe every single seal had shattered in an instant. The hammer's light faded, leaving him with only 50 seconds on the clock. He had actually succeeded, and Tsukishiro immediately began scanning the scrolls. He needed to find the ultimate technique before his time ran out. Watching silently, Sakura grew deeply concerned for her heavily exhausted master. She knew his mind could not handle such a massive influx of data. She desperately begged him to stop, but he was already too far in. His head felt like it was boiling, but he endured the agony. With only 40 seconds remaining, none of these skills were impressive enough. He did not want average powers, he needed the ultimate technique. Suddenly, a beautiful, glittering scroll of lightning caught his attention. He recognized this was a rare opportunity he could not let pass. With just 30 seconds left, Sakura started to grow highly anxious. She yelled at her master, reminding him they had no time left. Still completely focused, Tsukishiro ordered her to grab a third scroll instead. The quick girl immediately rushed forward to obey his command. She leaped up while Tsukishiro kept processing the relentless wave of knowledge. With only 20 seconds remaining, she finally reached the highest shelf. She grabbed the scroll, but instantly noticed something deeply troubling about it. The scroll was completely split, which made her think it was a mistake. Taking a broken technique meant they would have to find the missing pieces. Worried, the assistant asked if he was truly certain about this. Choosing a broken item seemed insane, especially when they had to leave. Only 10 seconds remained to escape, but the fearless warrior did not panic. Instead, he focused half of his explosive strength into his legs. He swept Sakura into his arms, promising to get them both out safely. Waiting outside, the Academy leader counted down the final 5 seconds. He assumed Tsukishiro had failed to find the scroll in time. Sweat dripped down his face as he watched the heavy vault door. Suddenly, the sealed stone door began to crack under intense pressure. A second later, a massive explosion erupted, triggering a pretty strong wave. But the leader somehow managed to stay on his feet as the thick smoke parted. The brave Suyoshi, who was carrying his faithful and devoted Sakura. He gently lowered her to the ground, and she held his hand with deep care. In respect, noticing the split scroll in the young man's hand, the old headmaster was completely shocked. It was the Thunder Chain, a legendary and incredibly powerful magic skill that unleashed a devastating electrical discharge. The old man explained that the skill is split into 6 pieces, 3 of which are close by, but finding is absolutely impossible without hints. It was also said that beastmen had tried to master it in the past, only to end up struck by divine lightning and blown to pieces. A puzzled Suyoshi wondered if they were hunting for the other pieces just to die, realizing that absolutely no one had actually mastered this technique yet. The bearded head of the academy said there was still one person who did it. 1,000 years ago, it was achieved by a divine king who also managed to lift the legendary sacred hammer, leaving this legendary skill. Carelessly picking his nose, the young man casually asked what the king actually wanted with such total garbage. The furious headmaster roared in response. Asking if he was mocking him, the old headmaster added that even though a king, nobody mastered it in 1,000 years, making it totally useless. Now check this out. Grinning as he lifted the scroll, Suyoshi proudly declared that this was perfect for him, telling Sakura that it was finally time for them to go. He muttered that this was just the beginning, and whether he could find the remaining fragments and master it was up to Suyoshi. To the pretty girl, calling her a mere half-beast who had previously been sentenced to punishment, the charming lady turned to face the grumpy old man who was sternly demanding how she could do this to her own people, and if she was really planning to sacrifice this innocent human boy for her goals. This clearly struck a nerve, and she defiantly told the grumpy old man that it was none of his business and immediately walked away to follow her handsome human companion as they left, leaving the headmaster to quietly mutter that he would see how far she could actually go. Sakura gently took the hand of her master, who was always kindly treating her with deep understanding. After a short while, the hero told Sakura that her special healing potions were extremely effective, but they also tasted quite awful. Gulping down the potions, he wondered what kind of nasty stuff she was using to brew them. Turning to his quiet companion, the young man asked if something was wrong, since she was acting quite quiet. Sakura only smiled gently at her master, claiming she was just a little tired. But his gut told him that something was very wrong. Sensing a heavy silence, he finally decided to ask her about important. He recalled that Sakura was also facing some severe punishment and wondered if it caused her tension. After all, the hero remembered very well that she was scheduled for execution right after him, though she got. Sakura quickly brushed it off, suggesting they focus on better topics, bad things, and asked her master if he had actually studied the remaining scrolls. Suyoshi confidently replied that he would make the impossible happen. He was fully prepared. Thunderchain required a strong body, and that suited him perfectly. But now, Suyoshi could not wait to track down the remaining fragment. He wanted to test his new skill. The cute, blue-eyed girl cheered him on. She offered to search ahead. Stretching, she added that it was a gorgeous day. A perfect day for a high-level upgrade. The young warrior agreed with her. But first, he had to use his infinity ring to unlock the passage. The portal opened. Suyoshi smirked, making a promise to himself. He would crush those three the second he mastered his new ability. Flexing his wiry arms, the fighter swore to settle the score with them. Within just a few minutes, a portal materialized in the human world. This marked the return of Suyoshi Tsukushiro, the young warrior. He gained massive experience, and he was ready for sweet, sweet revenge. Those bastards had ambushed him. After thinking it over, the kid realized he had to take out Guy before the others could strike. But he needed a weapon to cast the skill. Fortunately, he had a divine consciousness inventory. This ultimate spatial storage was immediately activated, and he pulled out exactly what he needed. Fully focused, Suyoshi armed himself with a glowing black sword, ready to unleash his new power. The bald mage was completely baffled by where the kid got the sword. The greedy Gaia declared that he would steal the blade for himself. Meanwhile, the third thug told them to kill the brat first before dividing the loot. With a sharp, heavy swing of his blade, the calm warrior told them that these losers were the ones who started this war. The trio immediately charged forward, totally underestimating his power. Now watch, they have absolutely no idea they just walked into a trap. He felt Sayoshi's terrifying aura and questioned if he was even human. The relentless Suyoshi kept swinging his sword, channeling pure energy. He aimed the blast right at them. They had no idea what was happening, and their confidence completely evaporated in a second. Gaia froze on the spot, staring at the blinding crackle of energy. This deadly attack was coming. Suyoshi finally activated his Thunderchain skill, summoning a massive lightning bolt from the sky that could easily chain react. The entire trio was instantly paralyzed, glaring at the monstrous kid. They could not believe he possessed such godlike magic. Suyoshi slowly lowered his massive sword, taking a well-deserved moment to breathe. The bald mage could not believe how strong he had become and knew they must retreat. They needed to run. One of the thugs begged Suyoshi to let them go, shaking as he whimpered that they were surrendering, but it was too late. Suyoshi was not that merciful. He swung his arm in a flash, delivering a brutal slap across the thug's face, making him scream. Keeping a deadpan look, Suyoshi asked if they thought this was a joke. The paralyzed Gaia, boiling with sudden rage, warned the young man that they were members of the Crazy Wolves Guild and not to mess with them. Suyoshi did not care about their pathetic threats, telling his opponent to die in silence. He raised his glowing blade, swinging it down for the final, decisive blow. It is over, only the bald warlock is left standing, and he knows what is coming. He realizes that leaving any enemies alive means a target on his back. Suyoshi turns his cold gaze toward him. You are next. Panic sets in, the desperate mage screams, asking if he truly thinks he can win. Does this kid honestly believe he is just going to lie down and die? Suddenly, he hurls an explosive fruit straight at the young warrior. Boom, it sticks right to him and detonates with massive power. But Suyoshi reacts instantly, raising his sturdy sword to shield against the blast. The explosive fruit is still stuck to the blade. This is bad. His tense enemy clenches his fist and screams that the bastard is dead. Right on cue, a blinding second explosion rips through the area. Survival seems impossible. No mere human could walk away from this. Laughing, the bald warlock brags about how much those premium weapons cost him. Even a level 12 hero would take fatal damage from a hit like that. He mocks Tsukushiro for being green, but wait. Through the clearing smoke, a dark silhouette slowly begins to take shape. A rough cough echoes out. He is still breathing. Veins pop on the bald mage's head as he stares in absolute shock. It is impossible for him to comprehend how his opponent is still standing. Thanks to his dark goblin armor and insane stats, Suyoshi is fine. He admits he would have been history if his gear was any weaker. Covered in heavy protective gear, his freezing gaze is filled with malice. Suddenly, he makes a massive leap to the side, terrifying the shivering sorcerer even more. Fueled by revenge, the young warrior locks onto his target. Absolutely nothing can stand in his way now. He closes in. A loud rumbling crash shakes the ground beneath them as he lands. It is a hard landing, yet his posture remains perfectly steady. He coldly asks if these brats really thought they could escape his wrath. Relaxing his hand, Suyoshi notes they are members of the Crazy Wolves Guild. They only targeted him because they thought his low level made him weak. Standing over their motionless bodies, he reminds them of the world's harsh truth. The weak get eaten alive, but look, a small brown pouch catches his eye. He walks over to inspect the pouch, picking it up to check its value. Tucked inside is a rare dimensional ring used for storing personal items. The storage capacity of this item depends entirely on the user's level. This is huge. The youngster is absolutely thrilled with his lucky find. All it takes is a quick infusion of his mana to fully activate it. For a low-level hero, finding a dimensional ring like this is almost impossible. The price is just too high, but after a couple of seconds he gasps. As the ring suddenly activates, he notices something completely unexpected. This particular magic ring is completely brand new and unused. Chuckling quietly, he looks at the fallen trio and thanks them for the loot. By the time security arrives at the wreckage, Suyoshi is already long gone. The clever warrior managed to clean up the scene and take everything valuable. He is highly confident they will never find any proof linking him to this. The thug's phone was pretty nice, and Suyoshi linked his account to it. Now it was officially his, but suddenly a loud ringtone pierced the quiet. The sudden ring made him jump, nearly dropping the device right onto the pavement. Answering the call, the young man listened intently as a familiar voice spoke. It was his class teacher, Lily. Suyoshi quickly asked if something had happened. He only just realized he should have let her know he was leaving. The teacher understood that the student had stopped coming to school to make money. He needed money for his sister's treatment, but she didn't want him dropping out. He thanked her but gently explained that things were much more complicated than that. It was not about money. Suyoshi confessed that he hated school with a passion. The brutal memories of bullying rushed back, and he was sure Lily knew everything. Lily understood his pain, but she hoped the boy would find another way. She desperately wanted him to stay in school and promised to help him somehow. She offered to figure out his tuition and urged him to return tomorrow. After all, he could not work as a garbage collector forever. Suyoshi knew it. Lily was the only teacher who cared, but she did not know he was a hero. Holding back tears, she promised to support him no matter what. She begged Suyoshi not to drop out, both for her sake and for Karina. Suyoshi honestly never wanted to return to that place. It held nothing but painful memories. But hearing her sincere words made him realize something very important. He was a powerful hero now, not the helpless kid everyone used to kick around. Just wait, those bullies are about to pay. Meanwhile, in an office across the city, A powerful boss sat in anger, hearing that 3 of his men had been killed. Slamming his heavily ringed hand onto the table, he growled about the mysterious warrior. Even worse, this stranger had also stolen his precious measurement ring. Showing his gold teeth, the boss sneered that the ring had a tracking spell on it. This magic easily pinpointed its location, and only a high-level mage could ever detect it. Staring intently at his tracking device, a cruel smile spread across the mob boss's face. He whispered in a rough, gravelly voice that he knew exactly where the thief was. As the ruthless leader of the Crazy Wolves Guild, he vowed to make the thief pay. Slapping his desk with sheer rage, he ordered his men to hunt down the culprit. "Bring me the thief," he barked, and his loyal lackeys instantly understood the assignment. Next morning, Suyoshi arrived at the school gates alongside his younger sister, Karina. She proudly told him she could finally walk again, even if it was very slow. Worried about his tuition, she had convinced him to let her come along. She did not want to be a burden, even though pushing a wheelchair was tough. Fortunately, her brother had already bought her a pair of sturdy crutches in advance. Yet even with them, the poor girl could barely take a few shaky steps. She wept, feeling guilty that her brother was spending so much hard-earned money on her. But she had no idea he was actually using cash taken from those thugs. Suyoshi knew he could never sell that measurement ring, since it was incredibly useful to him. Seeing Karina's happy face, he knew everything he did was worth it. With every single smile she gave him, his resolve only grew stronger and stronger. He gently urged his sister to take her time, reminding her not to be late. He promised to meet her right after school to help her down the stairs. Someone asks about the girl struggling on crutches, and her classmate says that is Karina. She lost the ability to walk after that brutal attack of darkness, smiling wickedly. The brunette mockingly calls her a pathetic loser. Another girl mentions she was on the news, and even the school staff know about her. The mean girl sneers that worthless beggars belong in the trash, and the news just wasted precious airtime. On her red-haired friend asks Mina if she plans to target Karina again. Because this time the teachers might actually catch them, the smug bully reminds her that when she tortured the girl before, nobody dared say a word. And that will never change. She casually mentions she has a hot date and struts off with her quiet friends following close behind. Meanwhile, the vice principal is giving Suyoshi a harsh lecture, telling him to focus on school, but teacher Lily steps in to defend him. Nervous and awkward, the young student scratches the back of his neck and quickly thanks both of his teachers. He politely apologizes for causing trouble and walks out with Lily, who brings up his schedule. Honestly, the vice principal does not care about this kid at all and is actually just thinking about how perfect the boy is as Lily's secret lover. Lily tells Suyoshi that she already paid his sister's school fees, making him feel incredibly guilty. He deeply apologizes for the burden and promises to return every single cent. The kind teacher waves it off for now and urges him to prepare for exams since he is starting his 3rd year. She happily notices that he looks much more energized and alert lately. Suyoshi says he has been trying his best and promises to work even harder. To make her proud, he secretly regrets admitting he is a hero, especially with the guild issue still hanging dangerously over his head. She tells him to head to art class, but in the background, a mysterious butterfly is quietly resting on the ceiling, a strange blue insect flutters right behind him. He has absolutely no idea he is being tracked. Moments later, the boy walks into his classroom, joining the other students. The notorious classroom bully, Raleigh, is lounging back in his seat. With his legs up, he mocks Suyoshi, pretending he thought the loser got expelled. His stupid sidekick whispers a cruel plan to their friend, suggesting they corner the guy in the restroom after school for some fun. Raleigh loves the idea. Toying with a piece of crumpled paper, he grumbles that his wallet has been way too empty while their target was gone. With a smirk, Raleigh chucks the paper ball at him, blaming him for missing out on karaoke. Suyoshi just keeps taking notes in his book, ignoring them completely, but these brainless punks are not going to stop. Another piece of trash immediately comes flying straight toward his vulnerable back. But wait, these fools have no clue that he is not a helpless victim anymore. Without turning around, Suyoshi instantly snatches the flying paper out of the air. It is an amazing move, instantly shocking the arrogant bullies, who never expected their usual punching bag to react like this. For a moment he just sits there, staring calmly ahead. Then he slowly turns around, locking his cold, piercing eyes directly onto Raleigh. Tsukushiro calmly told them they would talk in the restroom after class. The bully pounded his fist on the table, shouting that the kid had gotten way too cocky because they had not seen each other lately and he wanted to teach him a lesson. After the call, they headed to the restroom, leaving a thug posted at the door. To keep outsiders from entering, the patched-up brute sneered that he heard he had dropped out of school. He called Tsukushiro a garbage man, but our hero stayed silent. Then the scoundrel declared it was finally time to pay up, and his partner with the long bangs ordered the kid to hand over his cash. The unfazed protagonist calmly asked what would happen if they got rejected. This time, the entire trio froze, completely stunned to hear such words from a kid who used to take their abuse in silence. Red with rage, Rally threatened to break him, while his thugs waited for the signal to start. Swinging in a flash, both bullies lunged forward and aimed heavy punches at their target, who easily caught both their fists, remaining totally calm. Now, Tsukushiro was convinced that he had become incredibly strong, and he was no longer afraid of the pathetic trash threatening him. He once lacked the courage to stand up for himself, but everything was different, and his situation had fundamentally changed. Tsukushiro used his divine eyes to quickly check the stats of these opponents. They did not even pose a threat. Suddenly, he pounced on the villains first, grabbing their collars and dragging them close to him for a strike. With a quick leg kick, he easily pushed them aside. Without giving them a single second to realize what happened, stunned, Rally watched his goons get absolutely destroyed in silence, unable to even process a beating like this. Both boys collapsed at his feet, leaving the bully completely speechless and confused. His mind immediately flashed back to memories where the weakling Tsukushiro was constantly beaten and mocked. It made no sense to the guy how this helpless victim had suddenly turned into a fearless beast. Showing zero fear, a short-haired student suddenly ran into the restroom and shouted in panic that the boss had arrived, so they had to run. The panicked Rally quickly fled with him, while Tsukushiro watched them leave in silence. Before leaving, the bully glared angrily at the guy who dared to trash his buddies, but looking at his face, our hero knew the guy was all talk. As the bully scrambled to help his beaten friends up, honestly, Tsukushiro was glad they backed off, because if he had used his true physical form, he might have killed them. Sitting in her wheelchair, Karina felt terrible for causing so much trouble for her friend Haru, who was always right there to support her. The sweet classmate handed over a notebook with a warm smile. Suddenly, a heavy object was thrown right at them, and a harsh female voice shrieked for her to back off, demanding to speak to the crippled girl. Gently, Haru told Mina that Karina could not walk, but the cruel brunette threatened to punch her in the face if she said another word. Terrified, the student fell silent, and the arrogant girl slammed her foot on the desk right in front of Tsukushiro's sister. She sneered that the cripple had missed school for so long, leaving them with one less slave to torment every day. Trembling with pure dread, Karina explained that she just did not have any money. She had no idea what her words would bring. With a smirk, the cruel girl asked if those expensive-looking crutches of hers were worth some decent cash. The terrified girl replied that they meant everything to her because her brother worked tirelessly to get them. When those words reached Mina, it was like a sudden shock struck her, while her red-haired friends silently watched the scene play out. The vicious bully suddenly realized that without her precious crutches, the poor girl would not be able to walk at all. Karina quietly nodded, and her tormentor suddenly picked up a heavy, strange-looking metal chair. With a fast swing, she brutally slammed it down on the defenseless girl. The other students in the classroom simply watched in silence, terrified of the cruel Mina, who nobody seemed to have any control over. Adjusting her glasses, the teacher announced that class was now starting and ordered everyone to sit down. The vicious girl warned Karina not to dare run home after school, threatening that they were not finished yet. Moments later, the teacher told the class to open their books, but the traumatized girl was too overwhelmed to focus. She knew she had to ensure her brother did not cross paths with Mina and her gang out back, so they could escape the school together. Meanwhile, in Sayoshi's classroom, the teacher announced that lessons were finished, reminding everyone to stay safe on their journey back home. The students quickly packed up, bowed in respect, and thanked Lily, who smiled warmly and waved them off. Then, the kind teacher asked Sayoshi to step up to her desk for a second, and he readily complied. With a gentle smile, she asked if the young man was finally getting accustomed to school life after being away for so long. offering her complete support. She wanted to help him in any way possible during this incredibly challenging time. Suyoshi replied that he was doing great, offering a polite smile of sincere appreciation. Lily gently urged him to report any signs of bullying immediately to her. She wanted to prevent any future trouble, but Suyoshi confidently assured her he was fine and expressed his gratitude once more. Lily realized she was probably overthinking things, but felt genuinely happy that her student was adjusting so well to school life. With a warm nod, she dismissed him. Suyoshi waved goodbye and stepped outside, walking alone with his own silent thoughts. But suddenly, a nervous classmate approached him, claiming he wanted to apologize for the bathroom incident in a private spot. Suyoshi quietly observed the shaking, sweating boy, but agreed to follow him anyway. Chubady led him down the hallway, repeating his fake, nervous apology. But we all know this is an obvious trap. Sure enough, it was. The perfect setup. As they neared the secluded area, a dark grin spread across the scoundrel's face. Out of nowhere, a thug armed with a thick wooden baton lunged forward, swinging it violently at the completely calm and unbothered Suyoshi. Violent impact echoed all the way down the quiet, empty school hallway. Proving their trap worked, laughing, Chubady told Raleigh not to hold back now. On the target as he began relentlessly, punching the boy with pure pleasure. But Suyoshi unleashed his overwhelming physical strength, channeling it directly into his fists, instantly terrifying his attackers. The coward who had set up the ambush in this empty hallway began shaking with pure terror at his power. He stopped. Suyoshi knew all about their schemes, but didn't think they were such slow cockroaches, before delivering a sharp kick to the chest of the chubby kid, who was completely confused and frozen in place, feeling an unbelievable pain that made him scream aloud, desperately wanting payback for that disrespectful blow. The angry guy immediately swung a fist at Suyoshi, who effortlessly dodged and remained unharmed, swinging his own fist right into the head of the heavy kid, making the bully gag just like the others. And in that exact instant, the heavy kid collapsed onto the floor completely unconscious as white foam began spilling from his mouth. With a calm expression, the unperturbed fighter remarked that they had not learned their lesson, calling the bullies total losers. Only a furious Raleigh remained standing, swinging a heavy baseball bat to send his opponent straight to hell. But the cold-blooded hero just stared him down, saying if they weren't inside school grounds, he would have ended them. Instantly, the anxious red-haired lad froze in place, completely losing his ability to move out of pure terror. Overwhelmed by the terrifying presence of Suyoshi, the brave fighter commanded him to sleep. Within seconds, a powerful left hook slammed directly into his jaw, making him drop the bat in shock. A ruthless Suyoshi looked at the trash on the ground, muttering that it was finally time to check on his sister, and adding that the law of the hero saved them. In a serious voice, he declared that heroes cannot kill civilians, no matter how much of a bastard they might be. Meanwhile, struggling, panting Karina was making her way down the backyard hallway. She decided to escape Mina by sneaking through the back gate toward the main entrance. However, the steep steps at the bottom of the exit were nearly impossible to descend alone, filling her with a deep, paralyzing anxiety. She exhaled slowly to steady her nerves, completely terrified of taking a step. Suddenly, a harsh shove to her shoulder caught her off guard from behind, which she was completely powerless to resist. Her heavy school backpack slipped off, sending all her school supplies scattering across the dirt path. She crashed face first into the mud, painful impact drawing a thin trickle of blood from her nose. A cruel Mina gloated, mockingly asking if Karina honestly thought she could slip away through the back door. The arrogant bully smirked, demanding that she hand over her expensive crutches. Fighting back hot tears, Karina begged her to stop and leave them alone, pleading that they were a precious gift from her brother. But the heartless bully stepped closer with a sadistic smile, asking if she realized she was helpless without them. Meanwhile, Suyoshi stood by the exit, waiting for his sister after her classmates told him she had already left. But she was nowhere in sight. Suddenly, a soft voice called out to him from behind, prompting the young man to turn around immediately. A worried Haru asked if he was the brother of Karina, mentioning their plan to walk home together. She added that she saw her head toward the back gate and urged him to check there. Suyoshi wasted no time heading out to find his sister, completely ignoring the curious stares of nearby students. He wondered why she would leave that way, trying to keep himself calm. Something was definitely wrong. A dark premonition began to settle in. He noticed Haru acting pretty strangely, almost like she was terrified of something. The sharp young man knew he had to find Karina right away, since she could be in serious danger. Ahead, a staircase led down to the backyard. He headed down, stepping forward. The serious-faced Suyoshi wondered if his sister could have climbed those steps on her own. Then, his expression completely froze. Below, a sight made his chest tighten. Karina was sitting on the floor, covered in blood and utterly helpless. Her school supplies and broken crutches scattered everywhere. Our quiet protagonist stayed completely silent, yet inside, fury burned as he stared at the scene. His blue-eyed sister noticed him. Quickly fixing her hair, her face was covered in painful dark bruises. She tried to force a bright smile, asking her older brother what he was doing here. She tried in vain to stand up, but failed. Suyoshi scanned her injuries with his system eye. The diagnosis was heartbreaking. Although his sister claimed she just fell downstairs, the system notification confirmed she had multiple assault wounds. Still, he chose to play along for now. He could practically picture the cruel face of some cheap bully mercilessly striking her down. Karina softly admitted she was just too clumsy, claiming she could not even manage the steps on her own. She even apologized for breaking her crutch. Meanwhile, Suyoshi was still imagining those brutal moments where someone was pinching and hitting his sister. Karina whispered that she did not want to cause any trouble, but he simply knelt down to pack her things back into her school bag. He gently reminded her they were family, asking if she was in pain. His sweet sister shook her head, telling him not to worry at all. She worriedly asked about her expensive new crutches, which were now broken. He looked into her tearful eyes, reassuring her everything was fine. Hearing this, Karina finally let out a long sigh of relief. Genuinely glad, with gentle care, the protective brother lifted his sister onto his back to carry her home. On the way, they both stayed silent, watching the beautiful sunset while lost in their own thoughts. Then, Suyoshi remembered that terrible day years ago when he carried her the exact same way. Keeping his voice calm, he mentioned the memory, noting how much she had grown since then. He remembered every detail of that day. He told her it had been a very long time ago, but his sweet sister whispered that it felt like yesterday. Ever since then, they had been completely inseparable. He replied that she was the reason he decided to grow stronger. To keep her safe, though he was weak back then, he was a protector now, who would never let her be harmed again. Karina smiled, saying he always worked so hard and she did not want to be a burden. He repeated that they were family, then gently asked her to wait a little bit, promising he would return soon. He assured his sister that he had forgotten something back at school, telling her not to worry about it. But in reality, the fierce fighter was heading back for cold-blooded revenge on the people who dared hurt his sister. Meanwhile, the cruel Mina was casually complaining to her boyfriend about failing to break the crutches to sell them to someone else. Billy told her not to worry, promising he would get those pricey crutches by tomorrow. Then their red-headed friend mentioned that Karina's brother Suyoshi had briefly returned to school before dropping out and was rumored to be working as a garbage collector. This immediately brought a laugh from the arrogant brunette who despised the poor girl and her trash-collecting brother. She was absolutely disgusted to even study with them. One friend noted that the injured girl was once highly popular before her accident, loved by plenty of guys in class because she was clever, cute, and stylish. Hearing this, Billy grinned and remarked that he would really love to meet this little cutie. That comment instantly set off Mina, who sat beside him, burning with jealousy over another girl getting his attention. Billy quickly leaned in, claiming he was only joking, but she coldly told him to just take Karina's crutches and sell them off. Honestly, these guys had no idea that a furious Suyoshi was already standing right outside the door, listening to every single word. Clutched by its strap, his backpack hung from his hand as he stepped inside to settle the score with these bullies. The loud footsteps instantly caught the attention of the three startled high schoolers, who turned toward the doorway in complete confusion. A bewildered Billy immediately barked, demanding to know who dared barge in and disturb their peace. It was them. Suyoshi realized these guys were the ones who attacked Karina, despite her claiming she had simply fallen down the stairs. The startled red-headed guy realized he was the garbage collector's brother, and the toxic Mina sneered that his rescue attempt was too late anyway. Billy then demanded to know if this was indeed the pathetic trash collector Suyoshi they had heard about. Cracking his knuckles, the arrogant punk asked if this third-year student had ever heard of the legendary Billy. Standing completely unfazed, the warrior asked if it was true that they decided to push his helpless sister down the stairs. Grinning broadly, Billy asked the trash collector if he had a problem with that or if he wanted to apologize. The snobby girl urged her boyfriend to teach the kid a lesson quickly so they wouldn't waste any more time. Billy scoffed, asking how a lowly garbage man dared waste their day, but his expression instantly twisted. Without warning, an unbothered Suyoshi reached out and grabbed the punk's hand. With a quick twist, Billy was on his knees. Billy, barely keeping himself from crying, stared down at his broken finger, howling in disbelief over how anyone dared to do this to him. Aghast, Mina and her friend watched in utter shock, unable to believe their tough leader was defeated so easily. Now the quiet but lethal brother took a few steps back towards the exit. Grabbing the handle, he slowly shut the door and made it clear that no one was getting out of this room. His cold eyes burned with pure fury. Activating his analytical vision, the fighter realized these cowards had zero threat levels. Absolutely zero threat, a panicked Mina shrieked, demanding to know what he was doing, completely clueless about the beating they were about to receive. The young man mocked them, saying Billy acted tough but only preyed on the weak. Sweating from the pain, the trembling bully weakly asked if he even knew who his powerful father was, while the arrogant girl worried frantically about his hand. Licking her lollipop, their red-headed classmate warned them that Karina's protective older. She admitted the brother had guts. Then, with a deadpan look, she warned that even if they are not heroes, they are absolutely not people to mess with. But the brutal Suyoshi had no time to waste and launched a massive uppercut, sending her flying. Her treats shattered, the messy girl crashed down, rolling across the floor, and the brutal fighter asked if she really thought he wouldn't dare hit a girl. Mina was deeply worried for Vivian, who had just been stabbed by a ruthless and heartless villain. Frozen in sheer shock, Billy could barely process the chaos. Since not even their school's top athletes were as fast as this garbage man, the brunette, meanwhile, was desperately calling out for her red-haired girlfriend, who had blacked out from the devastating fall. The furious curmudgeon turned back to the scoundrel Tsukushiro for hitting a girl, but suddenly the main character appeared right beside Mina, coldly repeating that he did not see them. As girls, he brought up his dad, but the ruthless warrior instantly blasted him right in the jaw, telling him to shut up. The panicked girl grew deeply worried about her wannabe knight, who turned out to be a talkative weakling. Seeing his knocked-out teeth enraged the girl, who fumed with absolute rage, desperate to get even with this monster. Casting aside all fear, she lunged straight at the motionless and cold-blooded Suyoshi. Showing absolute ruthlessness, the fighter instantly grabbed the defiant brunette by her throat. Since he did not care that she was a girl, he started slowly tightening his deadly grip, and the terrified girl desperately begged him to stop. Released, and get this, the boy noted that Mina was the one who started all the bullying against Karina. Were the rumors true? Glaring coldly at his targets, he warned them that as her brother, he would never forgive this trash for their abuse. With every single second, his grip grew tighter and tighter, crushing the arrogant girl's windpipe, forcing her to endure the lack of oxygen. Thick veins bulged on his hand as he growled that these bastards had pushed him way too far with their cruel games. From this moment on, he warned them to stay far away from his sister, adding that he didn't even expect them to apologize. Otherwise, he threatened to tear Mina's head clean off, asking if she understood him perfectly. Drenched in cold sweat, the terrified girl struggled to gasp out a nod, praying that he would finally let her go. Satisfied, the boy finally released the girl, and from her gasping mouth, saliva dripped onto the floor. He dropped her to the ground and turned his cold gaze toward curly-haired Billy, asking if he was her boyfriend. Picking up a metal ruler from the ground, the boy asked the coward if he still wanted to target Karina. Fighter's terrifying gaze proved that a single ruler was all he needed to wipe him out. Billy begged him to stop, but the ruthless Suyoshi was completely sick of his excuses, fully prepared to end him. In sheer panic, the coward suddenly shouted that he was the son of the Blue Snake gang leader, and that his father was a level 10 hero. Hearing this, the fighter froze, pausing the ruler and asking if it was true that they were that notorious loan shark gang. He instantly recalled these were the very creditors who lent him money for. Back when they visited the hospital, Karina's treatment plan pointed to the exact same conclusion. It was pretty unsettling, but Tsukushiro realized he was starting to cross paths with people he absolutely despised. Right after that, his activated skill sent a wave of raw terror straight through Billy, freezing him completely. Shaking with intense fear, the kid shrieked, asking if Tsukushiro was a hero, since these high-tier skills were available. To him, Tsukushiro simply infused the ruler with magical energy, casually waving it like nothing had happened, scaring the boy half to death. The devastating shock instantly struck Billy through the core of his body, making the blood freeze in his veins and causing his heart to painfully clench. The indifferent fighter tossed the ruler aside and calmly turned around to leave, remarking that a beating like this should be plenty of a lesson. Grabbing his heavy backpack off the dusty floor and slinging it over his shoulder, he warned the pathetic gang to remember his words, offering them one final warning. He even gave a dry apology that they had to clean up the messy classroom before he stepped outside and quietly closed the door. Gasping for air, Billy, still recovering from the electric shock, coughed violently while slowly coming to his senses after the brutal attack. A highly anxious Mina urged that they immediately rush to the local hospital, but her furious boyfriend snapped that he just needed to rest, grumbling that he had no idea the bastard was actually a hero. The humiliated girl touched the visible scar on her neck, desperately urging her boyfriend to tell absolutely everything to her powerful father. The irritated teen snapped, telling her not to point at him and vowed that the bastard would pay. Talk about a sore loser, grinning maliciously, the red-eyed punk swore he would make him pay, claiming his father would easily help him exact revenge. Feeling relieved, Mina agreed, though she felt a bit frightened by how tightly her boyfriend was clutching her shirt. Clenching his fists, the angry bully shrieked that he would tell his dad, promising to completely wipe Tsukushiro and his sister straight off the map. Meanwhile, a worried Karina stood waiting for her brother, praying that he was okay. After all, it had already been a while. She truly did not want to cause her brother any worry, especially since he recently achieved official hero status. Suddenly, her brother materialized right behind her, deeply startling the poor girl with his sudden arrival. Smiling warmly, the brown-eyed teen apologized for keeping her waiting and happily suggested they finally head back home. On the way, he silently worried about Billy dragging his powerful dad into this mess. He knew he had to be extremely cautious since Karina was now a target. He also resolved to head back to the other world, swearing a solemn vow that he would never let his enemies harm his beloved sister. Soon, he crossed back over to the other world where Sakura was patiently waiting, ready to brief him on the cold northern territory they had reached. She explained that taking on official quests in the city required them to register at the local Adventurers Guild first. With a confident smirk, Tsukushiro mentioned he had been itching to test his skills in real combat, saying this adventure sounded like an exciting game. Before long, the battle-ready fighter and his loyal ally journeyed deep into the northern city of the beastmen. Arriving in the busy center of town, Tsukushiro was amazed to see so many different tribes of beastmen living together. Sakura explained that the rarest clans gathered here, with each possessing unique traits, while the curious hero stared around wide-eyed like an excited kid. Up ahead, he spotted some ordinary human adventurers, and his guide quietly noted that there. She explained that many different tribes lived together in this massive city. She also noted there was a strict rule banning any fights outside the battle arena. Despite all the diverse tribes, proud elves and noble beastmen were rarely seen here. Fascinated by everything Suyoshi said, he already felt a warm bond with his new companions, making Sakura slightly uneasy. Suddenly, the energetic kid rushed toward the passing adventurer. Flustered, the young girl screamed out, "You can't do that!" So abruptly, the hostile fighters demanded to know his identity, warning him to stay back. Caught off guard, the puzzled youth asked if they had some local bizarre greeting customs here. Quickly, his brave companion leaped into a sharp combat stance, shouting to the pair that this was just a huge misunderstanding. Feeling tense and slightly anxious, the warriors froze right there, staring at the highly confident youth. They had absolutely no clue what was actually happening. Without wasting a second, Sakura grabbed Suyoshi and quickly began to slink away. She quietly advised her master against chatting up random street seekers, since most of them are highly paranoid of everyone around them. Glancing around, the confused youth wondered why everyone in the crowd was whispering about them. Uncomfortable under the intense gazes, the self-conscious girl had no real response and kept marching ahead. However, she eventually admitted that Your beastmen absolutely despised half-breeds like her, suggesting they head straight to the local adventurers guild instead. With a warm smile, the resolute hero offered his hand, telling her they would face it together. Feeling reassured, Sakura gently rested her fingers on his palm, trusting her master with her life. High above them, elite beastmen mounted on massive dragons soared proudly across the sky. Sakura pointed out that taking on quests required official guild registration first, while the curious young man marveled at his new surroundings. Heading inside, they approached the desk to apply. Glancing up, the pipe-smoking receptionist muttered that a party made of a human and a half-beast hybrid seemed pretty unusual. Holding a golden scroll case, the refined lady asked which one of them wanted to sign up. Suyoshi stepped forward, declaring he would register, though he felt the beast folk's strange looks were quite odd. The receptionist instructed him to fill out his name and combat class on the application sheet, explaining that his profile would sync with all guild branches. As the startled youth stared blankly at the parchment, Sakura reassured him that the paperwork itself did not matter as much as securing his official registration. Otherwise, he could never receive his adventurer badge. The lady chimed in, explaining that the seal proved his identity and higher ranks unlocked far better payouts. She detailed how the tier of each badge ascends through a specific orders, starting from iron up to bronze, silver, and finally gold. She noted that across all branches, only an elite few held gold status, and they solely worked for wealthy nobles. Looking at the starting iron piece, he found it pretty dull. The receptionist smiled, promising that his level would immediately jump once registered. Instantly, his stats surged up to level 6, utterly shocking Suyoshi, who had no idea how this system even operated. Sakura explained that the badge tracked his rank, meaning he could easily hide his power levels with just a thought. He narrowed his eyes, focusing intensely. He realized that with the divine selection system, succeeding was actually a piece of cake. The shocked beastwoman admitted that new recruits almost never get it on their first try, since the feat is normally impossible. But then, the guild room was suddenly invaded by rowdy thugs, with one shoving the kid aside and calling him scum. The massive, panting fighter tried to catch his breath, announcing that they had returned to hand in their completed mission. He then asked the receptionist if she had another job, promising they would accept whatever conditions she set. The ogre also offered to buy her a drink if nothing was available, but the smoking lady replied she was busy. Smiling, she mentioned there was an assignment where the client wanted a seeker of level 15 or higher. The confused beastman asked if there was anything for level 10, wondering what this job was even about. She explained that ravenous dark minions were currently terrorizing the local farmers, and nobody could seem to stop them. That got one of the ogres excited, but his friends refused to take the job because you needed to be at least level 20. Right then, the brave Suyoshi Tsukushiro stepped forward and confidently announced they would take the job. The angry giants yelled at the scum to get lost, but he did not budge. He just stood there. But when he finally stepped up to claim the mission, the nervous beastman asked if he even knew what guild violations were. And Imbalis warned him that if he valued his life, he should drop this quest. A cold fighter added that since they could not do it, he should stay quiet. But instead, Suyoshi suddenly offered to prove his strength right in the arena, knowing that the divine selection system would let him easily beat these beastmen single-handedly. The shocked ogre told the kid to know his place and give up before the client rejected him, making him a total laughingstock. The receptionist admitted she admired the young man's courage, but the fighters had a point, because the client would likely reject his low level. Laughing, a bearded ogre sneered that a simple job, like catching a runaway dog, would suit the kid much better. But watch what happens next. Confident in herself and her master, Sakura spoke up, declaring they would get this job done. Her sharp words completely stunned everyone present in the room, including the main character. A beastman called the girl a half-breed, demanding proof of their loud claims. Right then, the beautiful girl pulled a golden badge from her pocket and calmly asked if this would be enough. The shiny gold emblem in the half-breed's hand completely paralyzed the arrogant beastmen. As they never expected this shocked Suyoshi Tsukushiro too, who could not believe that a beast girl with ears possessed such a legendary badge. The friendly woman behind the counter sighed, saying they should have shown her sooner, because she would have approved the quest instantly. Still holding the receiver, Madame assigned the task to them, confident that the customer Would be absolutely thrilled. Suyoshi then turned his cold gaze toward the sweating beastmen who silently scurried out of the room like rats fleeing. A sinking ship, Sakura smiled, telling her master this quest would help him level up. And he agreed it was a great opportunity. Meanwhile, the confused guild receptionist stared, wondering who this boy actually was to have a gold badge seeker beside him. She called him master. Soon, the room cleared, leaving the lady entirely to herself. She quietly thought to herself that this team was pretty interesting. On their journey, the assistant studied the map, explaining that the farm overrun by raptors and dark minions was operating somewhere nearby. Tsukushiro confessed he had absolutely no idea that she owned a gold badge, but she replied she had joined the guild at a young age, completing countless quests. Later, upon realizing she had reached the gold tier, Sakura upgraded her badge, earning her master's deep admiration. The cheeks of the charming beast girl flushed a bright red. Lowering her gaze to the floor, she thanked the young man for his compliment. Before long, they stopped right in front of the farm's heavy gate, behind which lurked those grim dark minions. Sakura wondered just how many people the pack of level 10 predatory monsters had trapped inside that building. She said they massacre every living creature by driving them completely insane, thereby gaining power and robbing low-level targets of their minds entirely. Tsukushiro realized these beasts were just slugs, only vulnerable to thunder skills. That specific weakness made them highly dangerous, but get this, in an instant the skilled fighter realized his thunder chain skill would be absolutely perfect for destroying these vile entities. Steeling himself, he activated the spell and told Sakura to sit this one out, since he needed to upgrade his abilities anyway. Suddenly, Sakura reached out and grabbed him tightly by the jersey from behind, preventing him from taking another step forward. He did not really understand, and anxious Sakura warned him not to take this quest solo. It could cost him his life. She argued that while he might win one-on-one fighting, a whole pack alone was suicidal. Even the tough orcs avoided this quest entirely. Worried sick, Sakura did not want her master risking his life just to gain some experience points. He looked at her, holding two burning questions. The first was how much stronger he actually needed to become to survive in this dangerous world. Noticing his sudden silence, the polite girl asked what was bothering him. She promised to help in any way she could. A slightly saddened Tsukushiro wondered if she remembered his heavy promise to the king of the beastmen. Regarding the trial in a year, he asked how strong he needed to be to prove himself, which only made the lovely beast girl worry even more. Looking down with sad, heavy eyes, she decided to be brutally honest with him. Staring straight into his eyes, she admitted that at his current power level, surviving that test next year was impossible. A totally stunned Tsukushiro stood frozen, demanding to know why it was so impossible. Sakura explained that he would have to struggle just to stay alive, asking if he knew about the tier system rules. After racking his brain, the young master realized he knew absolutely nothing and asked her to explain. Since both worlds shared the same leveling system, his stats had not changed, but beyond that, everything was a total mystery. According to Sakura, the king of the beastmen was currently level 92, earning his legendary status through pure, overwhelming power. Only 3 Grand Kings existed to symbolize the ultimate strength of their entire race. First among them was the mighty Beast King. Beside him stood the equally formidable Elf King and the Human King, both wielding legendary, unmatched authority. Talk about cold-bloodedness. Choshi complains that the king does not even look like the ultimate symbol of beastman power. Sakura explains that none of the seekers can easily break the level limit. The higher you get, the harder it is to reach the next tier. To prove this, she uses herself as an example, admitting she only reached level 72 in 20 years as an adventurer. Everyone has their own absolute limit, but passing the king's test requires reaching at least level 50. To the worried girl, it seems like Suyoshi cannot possibly gain that many levels in just a single year. After all, an ordinary seeker would spend their entire life trying to do so. Suyoshi looks her straight in the eyes, silently processing all of this important information. With a calm smile, he gently tells her he understands her concern completely. Then Honey asks her master if he is okay, promising to always stay by his side even if he cannot keep his word to the Beast King. The warrior knows he is not some ordinary guy, but a true challenger. Joshi proudly declares that he is definitely far from ordinary. After all, He survived divine lightning and lifted the holy hammer. Level 50 is nothing. He knows he is a chosen warrior, destined for an extraordinary path. But with the power of the divine selection system, anything is possible. Admiring his incredible courage, Sakura blushes as she looks at his strong, confident posture. She firmly declares that Suyoshi Tsukushiro is destined to become an absolute legend, believing in him with all of her heart. Grasping the hilt of his glowing energy sword, the brave warrior says, "It is time to charge ahead." Keeping a serious expression, he remembers the next question he wants to ask. Suyoshi asks how much his level would increase if he fights a level 10 boss with dozens of enemies all at once. He is thinking about the leader of that blue snake gang whose arrogant son he electrocuted just the other day, a thoughtful. Sakura is confused by his sudden question, but calculates that with so many enemies he could easily gain at least 2 levels. Doing the math, Suyoshi calculates he needs to reach level 12 within just 1 week. He steps onto the breeding grounds and is spotted by nasty giant slugs. Staring at these ravenous minions of darkness, our brave hero tells his companion to trust him completely. They prepare to abuse the system, starting by activating the divine eye to analyze their first target. The system immediately reveals that the monster's weakness is its heart, which glows to heal wounds whenever it takes damage. Suyoshi realizes that with his current level, he can win by aiming a thunder chain at the enemy's body. He leaps into the air to locate the heart first. Sakura warns him that a single touch from that beast could disintegrate him. But our highly focused warrior blocks out the noise, scanning for the vulnerable spot. In an instant, the glowing heart is exposed, and Suyoshi is fully confident that he can withstand any incoming counterattack. He triggers Trace, activating an absolute physical defense that makes him completely immune to basic damage. In an instant, he swings his blade, only to realize the heart is not in its chest at all. Minions, Suyoshi quickly noticed that the massive beast had already managed to recover, healing at an unbelievable speed, though he did some solid damage. It only made the giant slug angrier. In its rage, the beast took full advantage of absorbing another foreign organism, but that did not scare Suyoshi Tsukushiro in the slightest. A moment later, a massive impact echoed, thrown by the shadow minions, but the warrior easily survived the blow. The confident young fighter just laughed, shouting that they had picked the wrong target to mess with. Gathering his raw physical power, the fearless fighter braced his arms, sending his power surging, wearing a menacing grin. He mocked the shadowy beast, comparing it to a blind moth flying into the fire. Spreading his arms wide, he prepared to tear open the monster's jaws without a hint of fear. Standing back, a stunned Sakura realized that Suyoshi really could pull off the absolute impossible. The slug was shrieking in pain at the top of its lungs, its health bar rapidly draining. Gripping his sword hilt, the daring fighter confidently declared that he had finally found the creature's heart right beneath its tongue. With a grin, the fierce warrior readied his blade, whispering that the beast would taste the strike of thunder. A crackling chain of lightning shot straight for the core, destroying the ravenous shadow minion in a single devastating strike. Its heart shattered, disintegrating into tiny glowing particles right before their eyes. Confirming that his lethal strike had landed perfectly, wiping sweat from his brow, Tsuyoshi took a deep breath after the exhausting fight. Catching his breath, he calmly remarked that the quest was pretty easy. Regardless of how worried Sakura had been, 30 minutes later, nearly all the shadow minions had been wiped out by Suyoshi Tsukushiro. He realized she was right, and man, the level-up grind is real. Forcing him to find a much faster way to level up. Clenching his fist, Tsuyoshi swore to hit level 12 in under a week and reach level 20 in less than a year. He then asked his assistant if she had any burn ointment, prompting the girl to pull out some thunder oil from her inventory. She explained that she bought a couple so he could use it as much as he wanted, though only 4 bottles remained. Wiping his brow, Tsuyoshi asked if the oil was pricey, suggesting they stock up on it next time. Feeling a bit awkward, she admitted it was costly, costing her entire savings. Tsuyoshi suddenly caught himself, realizing he had been so completely fixated on gaining levels that he forgot money was just as crucial in this world. He also knew that even if he blew through all her cash, she probably wouldn't complain. The helpful maiden then explained that their reward depended entirely on the item's worth, and since their quest targeted minions, They would make around 300 gold coins. She added that once they finish the task, guild seekers would deliver the reward, so spending 3 gold was unnecessary. Admiring her brilliant mind, Tsuyoshi playfully remarked that she would make an incredibly reliable wife. Slinging his heavy sword over her shoulder, he noted that only the dungeon boss remained, likely hiding inside the house. Suddenly, a terrified farm owner shouted from nearby, demanding to know who permitted to enter his territory. The beastmen demanded to know if they were actual adventurers, otherwise what was she? Their kind totally ignored humans. One of the warriors asked if the newcomers had defeated the ravenous minions, but his partners scoffed that they were far too weak for that. The armored orc added that if these weaklings wanted the cardioles, they could just forget about it since their team had already claimed the quest. Tsukushiro recognized the client standing before them and spoke up about a massive misunderstanding. After all, the guild quest had already been accepted by their party. A shocked Sakura then asked if the cardioles really only dropped by taking down the boss. Rubbing the back of his head, the client admitted he posted the job, but never expected them to show up so fast. Realizing they knew nothing about the cardioles, a beastman holding a massive bow sneered that since they were clueless, they should leave the task to them, adding that they would never let such a crucial item be snatched away. The weak-looking hero whispered to his companion, asking what this cardioles actually was, and she explained that they absolutely had to finish the quest for this valuable prize. Apparently, it was a rare boss drop that, even in its raw form, could fetch 100 gold coins at auction. Thinking it over, Tsukushiro decided they must secure the prize no matter what. Seeing their rising tension, the worried client begged them to calm down and not fight, hoping to resolve their little misunderstanding. He pointed toward the building where the boss was located, declaring that whoever defeated him would claim the reward, because that was only fair. Looking serious, Sakura begged him to let them go in first since she desperately needed that stone at all costs for her master, but the beastmen argued they should enter first because they came on a direct request from the client himself, who reluctantly confirmed it. With confidence, the rival fighters set off toward the building, their leader shouting to give their all for the massive reward. The young assistant noted that their rivals were well matched, and working together they were bound to slay the boss, but our tense young hero suddenly called out with a proposition, boldly asking to face the boss completely on his own first. The level 6 seeker promised that if he failed, they could go next, but if he won, the prize was theirs alone. Hearing such a bold claim from a weakling completely stunned the high-level beastmen. They immediately burst into tears of laughter, mocking that greed must have totally clouded the boy's brain because one had to be incredibly powerful to slay the boss. Meanwhile, our fearless youth slung his sword over his shoulder, ignoring their mockery. A worried Sakura warned him that the boss was corrupted by darkness, meaning even thunder oil might not be enough, but oozing absolute confidence, Tsukushiro simply tapped his chest, telling the beautiful girl to just trust him. Instantly, a deep peace filled her heart, and she softly declared that she truly believed in her master. The arrogant beastman kept laughing, eagerly waiting to watch the kid get brutally slaughtered by the boss. Gently rubbing the back of his head, our hero just chuckled at their wild taunts before calmly walking toward the building's entrance. Keeping his true level completely hidden, the serious youth muttered they would soon see who was actually going to slaughter whom. Suddenly, the ram-headed beastman shivered, wondering if it was his imagination or if the atmosphere had drastically shifted. In just minutes, the cold-blooded fighter stepped right into the room where the fearsome boss was waiting. Staring coldly at his opponent, he declared that he was solely interested in the legendary item called cardioles that everyone kept talking about. This boss was a predatory level 14 minion of darkness. Hearing this, its massive red eye bulged in fury. The anxious beastman watching nearby realized that by its look, Tsukushiro had to be at least level 23 to win. Sakura was incredibly worried for her master, who stood on the edge of a fight with this monstrous foe. A leopard-headed beastman warned the girl that she should prepare to carry his body out, since the boy would not last a single second. The cold-blooded girl turned to the group and quietly told them all to shut up. The stunned team of warriors stared back in surprise, but not a single soul dared to say another word. Meanwhile, our brave protagonist noted that the boss should possess the exact same weakness as its minions, though he knew this entity was vastly more powerful. The massive beast in turn glared back at him, With pure aggression ready to strike at any moment, the fighter hoped that if possible he could end things quickly, since a drawn-out battle would only favor his foe, pulling his legendary divine hammer right out of his spatial inventory. The serious young man declared that just 1 second would be more than enough to destroy this boss. He chose to maximize his arm strength first, then empower both his thunder chain and devastating heaven shaker skills at the final moment of impact. The fearless Tsukushiro kept in mind that he would be in grave danger if he failed to win with a single strike, since the skills would completely drain his strength, no matter what hour. Hero resolved to push forward and retrieve the prize by any means. With those words, he leaped high, shattering the stone ground beneath his feet. In midair, the fierce young warrior swung his mighty divine hammer straight at the eye of the enraged boss. While launching himself forward, he triggered his thunder chain to completely obliterate his enemy. With a single strike, the agile fighter swung his glowing weapon, which hummed with such intense energy that it deeply alarmed the beast. An instant later, devastating strike slammed directly into the dark minion's head, triggering a blinding, chaotic explosion. The beastmen waiting outside saw columns of energy pierce the heavens, utterly confused about the insane battle happening inside. A few seconds later, the building burst into splinters, shocking the skeptical onlookers. Panicked Sakura realized that Tsukushiro had unleashed his ultimate trump card. Again, knowing that it would leave him completely drained and vulnerable, his loyal assistant immediately rushed toward the smoking wreckage, while her stunned companions stood frozen in complete disbelief. Fighting back her rising panic, she screamed his name, desperate for any response from the ruins, hoping the powerful boss had been defeated by the blast. Suddenly, an arm reached out from beneath the piles of debris. It was indeed Tsukushiro. Weakly calling out to his worried companion, the exhausted warrior held a glowing blue gemstone, wondering if this was the Cardiolis everyone spoke about. He had managed to claim a rare, uncut version of the jewel, easily worth a massive fortune at any elite auction house. Sakura. Back at the guild, the beastwoman says the client's summoned team completely failed. Sakura thanks her, but proudly explains the boss was defeated by her master. She admits there is absolutely no way she could have handled that beast alone. Hearing this, the cute beastwoman receptionist laughs and tells them to stop joking. No way a kid like Suyoshi could ever beat a level 14 titan. She's also highly curious why he looks so utterly exhausted and weak. As Tsuyoshi sits on a wooden bench, Sakura explains what happened. Her master fought single-handedly. He drained all his energy. The woman doubts it, but suddenly his weakness completely vanishes. Tsuyoshi stands tall, squares his shoulders, and steps forward. It seems his recovery after using the hammer is actually incredibly fast. He immediately asks the assistant if she learned anything new about Cardiolis. The surprised beastwoman says they can auction the stone for massive riches. Selling it downtown would bring a huge fortune, but Sakura has other plans. Sakura prefers to give the precious stone to a guild shaman first. She asks if the shaman is in town, and the receptionist agrees. Infusing magic into Cardiolis is definitely the best way to utilize it. She promises to submit their request and write them a letter of recommendation. This way, busy shamans preparing for exams won't turn them away. Hearing about exams makes Tsuyoshi wonder if shamans have different ranks. Sakura explains that shamans are indeed divided into 6 distinct ranks. These prestigious titles are awarded based on their performance in an exam. Like the awakened, they craft specialized medicines and highly valuable items. A higher rank is required to significantly improve their crafting quality. Interestingly, shamans and healers never participate directly in combat. They are treated as noble, highly respected representatives of the Seekers. They craft legendary medicines and can even manipulate an adventurer's level. This stresses Tsuyoshi out. Sakura then shares a famous ancient legend. A warrior once angered a shaman who summoned Seekers to hunt him. This sparked a war, and honestly, these lore drops are incredibly interesting. Tsuyoshi now realizes just how incredibly influential these shamans truly are. The friendly beastwoman hands over the official recommendation letter for them. Now they can enter the guild and finally process their Cardiolis. At the gates, a massive crowd of nervous shamans awaits the exams. Tsuyoshi is completely shocked by the sheer number of candidates outside. Sakura explains that exam days attract heirs from very prestigious families. These exclusive clans are hard to join. She confidently grabs his hand. She reassures him that their special recommendation letter will get them inside. She approaches a burly beastman guard, asking where they can refine it. The massive guard bluntly tells her that it is impossible today. Only registered shamans are permitted to enter during the exam days. Sakura politely mentions their official recommendation letter from the Adventurers Guild. She presents the document, but the guard, rudely shoves her back. Rude harshly reiterates that the exam is currently ongoing and they absolutely cannot enter. Tsuyoshi steps in to defend Sakura, firmly demanding they look at it. He demanded entry since they had a letter of recommendation, but the worried shaman hesitated. He explained the guild was building power, meaning no matter how many days passed, they would not be let inside until the exams ended. The worried assistant warned her master not to provoke the witch doctor, but the stern-looking warrior did nothing. The president of the Northern Shaman Association, Doug, wearing his purple robe, stepped forward and asked the crowd what on earth was happening. One of the witch doctors quickly apologized to the president for the disturbance while the onlookers watched in absolute silence. The beastman then pointed at the rude newcomers who showed up on exam day to deal with the Cardioli's fearless Tsukushiro told the leader that he possessed a letter of recommendation demanding to know why they were keeping him out. The angry ogre shouted, asking how a brat dared speak to the president like that, but Doug told the warrior he was willing to help process his entry, but not today. The kid realized that leveling up was his absolute priority right now because he ran short on time, so he asked if there was any other way out of this. The president replied that he could take the shaman exam and achieve the highest score, but since he was a warrior, he could never do it. Scratching the back of his head, the young man wanted to try and asked what requirements he needed to meet. The crowd around him immediately burst into laughter at the brat, who did not even know the basics, calling it an absolute embarrassment. The president explained that the kid must possess at least the abilities of a mage since the exam required crafting a magical potion. The stubborn Tsukushiro realized he would qualify if he were a mage, so he asked the president to lend him a staff. Doug was completely baffled by the kid's sheer audacity. To demand a magical weapon from him was insane. The tense beastman standing nearby called the boy an idiot, shouting that a staff would not make him a mage. But completely unfazed, the young warrior calmly asked the president to lend him the weapon and promised he would prove his worth. At first, Doug looked skeptically at the bold boy, but his interest was sparked. Doug held out a completely unrestricted staff, wanting to see how this fighter would prove his point. Worried, Sakura leaned in and asked her master in a quiet whisper what he planned to do. Tsukushiro just smiled back at her, whispering in return for her to simply trust him. The blue-eyed girl instantly relaxed, knowing that whenever her master made a promise, he always succeeded. The irritated ogre snarled at the kid to show his skills since President Doug had graciously lent him his staff. In an instant, Tsukushiro extended his arm forward, twisting his upper body with absolute focus and deadly seriousness. The beastman suddenly froze, realizing that the boy was targeting him. Instantly, a heavy punch slammed straight into the gut of the shaman, who could not even react. Suddenly, the big man's mind went blank, his heart suddenly filling with strange affection as his cheeks flushed bright red. The focused fighter knew right away that if his theory about copying a mage's skill held true, he could easily wield magic along with this staff. His choices were never restricted by class, and he could theoretically choose anything, but his past decision came down to personal. Historically, mages possessed a massive amount of magical energy compared to other classes. They grew their strength through focused meditation, but this time, the warrior copied that radiant skill, and the waking shaman shrieked out in rage. She demanded to know what the pervert was doing. The formidable Tsukushiro asked if using magic made him eligible for the exam. Stunned, President Doug watched closely as the bizarre magic scenario unfolded. He saw how masterfully the boy manipulated magic waves. Was he even a warrior? Focusing with intense concentration, Tsukushiro told Sakura to close her eyes immediately. He was ready to raise the stakes. She immediately trusted his warning. She shut her eyes tight as the staff began emitting bright rays. The blinding light could burn anyone's eyes. The white shaman cast protection magic. His glowing barrier easily blocked normal attacks. He was very confident. He figured this basic radiance was pretty decent for a simple seeker, but His shield would never break from minor magic. Suddenly, the system popped up. It asked Tsukushiro if he wanted to boost his energy with absolute physical form. He accepted instantly. The strength of his blinding glow surged. His magic power spiked to 3,500 points, sparking a massive magic surge. A tense President Doug noticed the sudden wave. He had no clue how this sudden rise in intensity was even possible. Soon, the system notified him that the magic shield would shatter under this pressure. The incredible light blinded everyone. Nobody understood how this was happening. Proudly squaring his shoulders, the young warrior stepped forward. He turned back to the president, who was forced to change his mind. Remaining perfectly calm, he softly asked to join the shaman trial. The masked president replied that he would reluctantly recognize his qualifications. Arguing was useless now. Before the test began, the crowd started whispering. They whispered that a human might become a healer, but never a real shaman. They dismissed the entire situation as an absolute joke, a beastman standing nearby. Crowd muttered that he had never seen anything like this happen before. He watched in complete bewilderment. Tsukushiro noticed that everyone was staring at him like an enemy, but Sakura explained his unique situation. He was the first human to ever take the exam. Surprised, he asked if that was true. The blue-eyed girl confirmed it, according to her. Humans are normally healers, which is similar to the shaman class of beastmen and awakened elves. She added that all three distinct classes have their own factions. Trying to join another would be seen as a direct provocation. He nervously muttered he just wanted to reach Cardiolis, but Sakura reassured him that there was no rule forbidding him from participating. She said he could do as he pleased. Vice President Ilsa Pig did not oppose President Doug, but he still raised a crucial concern. He questioned if this precedent would ruin their honor, doubting that. Imagine brewing a potion without even having basic magic attributes. The guild master noted that he had personally lent the boy his staff, meaning today's test would show his true talent. Under her breath, Sakura realized she could feel heavy magical waves surging from the wizard for a brief second, though nobody else seemed to notice. The president notes he had only seen such potential in the brilliant shaman, Kevin, who amazed everyone with his skills, but Ilsa Pig laughs, claiming this kid will never compare to him and would not even qualify to carry the sandals of the legendary new apprentice. The surprised old man asks if Kevin's pupil is also here today, and the greedy boar replies that she will take first place. That is the adorable nightcat, Fulin, and according to the legendary shaman, she is even more brilliant than his youngest, the nearby beastmen whisper that she already knew how to brew complex potions a year ago, but because of her young age, she could not take the test. Loud onlookers in the crowd gossip about her beauty, but she just turns away and walks aside because they are blocking her path. Sighing deeply, the young girl mutters that these noisy losers are incredibly irritating before snapping her spellbook shut. Meanwhile, the vice president orders the spectators to clear out and tells the shamans to take their designated spots based on the numbers assigned to them earlier. Suyoshi Tsukushiro notices his card says number 15, and his cheerful helper wishes him luck. Promising to wait outside, heading to the exam hall, the young warrior notices that the seating numbers are painted on the floor, meaning he must find spot 15. He easily locates his station and sits down, patiently waiting for the exam to begin, staying completely calm. Standing right next to him is the lovely Fulin, who did not expect a mere human to take the shaman exam. Suyoshi introduces himself, silently noting that this adorable beast girl is the complete opposite of Sakura. The girl immediately snaps that Suyoshi decided to join this exam just to show off and grab attention. The perplexed hero realizes that a vicious tongue is this gorgeous girl's main flaw. She's absolutely brutal. Fulin, meanwhile, Doug announces that candidates must brew their potions completely alone, trusting that anyone taking this test is fully prepared for the challenge. Suddenly, a massive brewing rig drops right in front of him, which actually startles him for a brief second. The beast girl asks if he even knows how to use shaman equipment, advising him to just go home. Her constant mocking starts to irritate the young warrior, who wishes this pest would just leave him in peace. Examining the gear, Suyoshi concludes that alchemy is strictly manual in this realm, unlike the automated videos he watched before. Video where this entire process was fully automated. Old Doug tells the candidates that Vice President Ilsa Pig will explain the rules. Suddenly, The heavy boar slams his wooden staff onto the floor with immense force. Manifesting a glowing golden ring around himself, along with his partner, he stands right in the center, ready to showcase a remarkable magic display to the candidates. Amazed, the beastmen look up at the sky, watching. Intensely, looking at his instructions, Suyoshi reads that he must brew 3 energy potions within a strict limit of 1 hour. Feeling slightly anxious, the clever boy decides to first observe what his competitors are doing. Doug states that they must first collect their raw ingredients, most of which are kept near the brewing stations, where magical knowledge is highly critical. He warns that making even a single minor mistake will ruin the potion and lead to immediate expulsion from the exam. Observing the anxious beastmen, the young hero wondered if they were completely lost. Suddenly, Fulin stood right beside him, mentioning that mages prepare in advance. Normally, before brewing any potion, a caster would gather all their materials beforehand. A highly skilled beast maiden successfully finished selecting her ingredients and muttered how shameful it was to forget the basics for such a simple recipe. A shocked Suyoshi called her speed unbelievable, while everyone else stood clueless. But she just silently did everything. Within minutes, the young maiden held a brightly glowing object in her hands, a crucial component for her potion. Master Kevin had ordered her to secure first place, and she was determined to do exactly that for him. A stunned onlooker muttered that, as expected of the legend's apprentice, she was already cooking. Meanwhile, Doug noted that her precision and speed were absolutely perfect and completely calm. As the beast maiden began, first she set out to crush the raw materials. Then she calmly began mixing all her ingredients together in a basic bowl. She did it all with a totally relaxed expression. The young hero watched with deep interest, admitting to himself that despite her sharp tongue, Fulin was incredibly skilled. The daring boy decided to copy her moves and activated his divine eye to analyze her every single action. The president agreed that Kevin was right, seeing how wisely Fulin used her mana. The other judges agreed she would surely become a legendary mage someday. Meanwhile, the girl opened 3 flasks, channeling her staff's energy directly into them to brew the potion. A glowing, light green liquid immediately began pouring into the containers, showing off her incredible wizardry once again. Sage Doug pointed out that the next step was the most critical part. They had to remain completely focused to finish the final phase successfully. Staying locked on the task, she kept sending magical energy from her staff into the vials. Once filled, she proceeded to stabilize the liquid with care. The elderly sage remarked that blending these volatile ingredients using magic showed a caster's true talent, which was easy work for Fulin. He knew that at this rapid rate, she would easily take first. Meanwhile, Suyoshi Tsukushiro, who was standing right next to her, remained frozen like a statue. The white shaman wondered what on earth this lazy boy was waiting for, since he had not even started brewing. His rival had already reached the final fusion stage, ignoring him completely. Remaining perfectly calm, Fulin finished her entire test with ease, barely even breaking a sweat. The polite academy president then asked the talented beast maiden to wait until the exam ended for her evaluation. The proud young lady was not thrilled about having to wait around for all the slow underachievers, but she had no choice. Then she noticed the main character staring her down with a highly intense, unreadable look. The maiden snapped, demanding to know what he was looking at, while his divine eye successfully finished analyzing her every move. He calmly told her that nothing was wrong, but she warned him not to waste valuable time. But suddenly, the girl's expression froze as the young boy finally moved. Along with her, the vice president gasped in shock. Her colleague, absolutely sure the beautiful girl would win, stood there in utter shock. They were completely speechless. Then, the system asked if he wanted to apply the analyzed actions. He immediately agreed, and the system began gathering the right ingredients were quickly gathered and chopped up, while the potion brewing immediately got underway. The potion was already brewing. Fulin was stunned. She had thought her opponent was completely useless, yet he was mixing ingredients effortlessly. Completely on his own, the stunned pig muttered that this method looked highly familiar. It was the very same simplified brewing technique Kevin used during his younger years. This brilliant shortcut made the crowd wonder if the kid could actually match up to the genius disciple of the legendary shaman. Meanwhile, waiting at the main entrance, Sakura was growing increasingly worried about her master and wondered how he was doing. Even though her assistant trusted him, she still felt anxious. She secretly worried whether they would find any flaws in his special greens. Meanwhile, the calm Suyoshi Tsukushiro continued to amaze the crowd. He finished the last brewing step, now realizing there was much more to crafting crops than simple processing. He found this shaman class incredibly fascinating. All that was left was the final crucial step, where he had to imbue the potion with raw magic. A shocked Fulan couldn't believe her eyes and realized she absolutely could not let a total nobody defeat her here. She figured he must be using Master Kevin's legendary process simplification technique. The same method that stunned everyone during the shaman exam, the association head noted. That back then the legend brewed a rank C potion using this exact method, and it strongly resembled a white shaman's brew, adding that he had actually been a checker back then, though he could never make such a powerful potion himself. Nervous, Ilsa Pig muttered that while making this was a miracle, the final product was all that mattered. President Doug watched the entire process with sharp, calculating eyes. He watched closely, well aware that a rank C potion could only be made by an elite blue shaman. Suddenly, a system notification alerted him that the rank could range anywhere from D to S, completely determined by his personal brewing skill, which thoroughly surprised him. It was currently a basic rank D potion, but the young man knew he had to push further. Feeling the pressure, he realized he had to surpass Fulan, because if she created a rank C- potion, first place would slip right through his fingers. Focusing his mind, the boy wondered how to boost his odds. He recalled that during processing, the item rank was directly affected by the caster's own physical strength and unique personal attributes. If he could somehow modify those stats, the potion rank would surely rise. First, Tsukushiro decided to dramatically boost his raw strength by activating a skill. He unleashed his absolute physical strength skill, but remained clueless on altering his attributes. Meanwhile, the president scoffed, remarking that without a stable flow of magic, he would fail the process. The pig beastman laughed, saying he was just wasting energy. His tense opponent, however, couldn't quite figure out what was really happening. Since his processing was complete, he should have proceeded directly to the fusion. Instead, he hesitated, waiting. Suddenly, a nervous beastman approached the young fighter, nervously asking if he had completed the potion yet. He reached out with a sweaty hand to the young man's back, muttering, "At this rate his mana will run dry." Suddenly, Fulan steps in, slapping his hand away and snapping that they are distracting Suyoshi without even knowing the basic rules of shamans. Meanwhile, our deeply focused hero keeps brainstorming how to change his magical attribute using pure mana. At this moment, he realizes the king's hammer might be his best shot. If he borrows its power, he can easily shift his elemental attributes. Meanwhile, Ilsa Pig kept laughing at the kid, while the associate claimed his mana waves were too unstable to last much longer, ignoring all the mocking chatter around him. The deeply focused Tsuyoshi quietly activates the king's hammer, mentally. He communicates with the divine weapon, pleading for it to lend its power. The stunned crowd cannot believe their eyes as the energy shifts, and Fulan notices that her opponent's raw physical power has suddenly skyrocketed. His desperate gamble pays off, conjuring a brilliant 6-second lightning bolt as his temporary element. Gripping his magic staff tighter, he begins brewing his potion without wasting a single millisecond. After just a few seconds, the final fusion starts, drawing everyone's anxious gaze. With bated breath, they watch as the sweating kid completes his energy potion, defying everyone's expectations of a complete failure. Wiping the sweat from his brow, he realizes that manipulating magic is incredibly exhausting. Wondering if his final product can actually surpass the talented girl's. A completely stunned Ilsa Pig stands frozen in disbelief, nor could President Doug, who instantly senses a mysterious second element hidden inside. The old president wonders how this is even possible, while our hero notices their bizarre reactions. Soon, the exam's strict time limit expires and all shamans are ordered to stop working, facing immediate disqualification. If they continue, President Doug and his deputies step up to evaluate each potion, starting with the nearest table, opening the first flask. He notes the scent is incredibly faint and will quickly fade, meaning the elixir barely qualifies as D rank. Still, the relieved student passes and gleefully thanks the president who granted him such an immense honor. Meanwhile, the stern vice president delivers a harsh verdict to another shaman who overcooked his brew. Ruining the mixture and failing the exam, the distraught shaman collapses to his knees in disbelief, while Ilsa Pig snorts that consuming this would only weaken a person's vital stats. The evaluation continues for a bit longer, with the majority of shamans failing miserably. Soon it's Fuelin's turn, and the first thing Ilsa Pig asks is how Master Kevin is doing. The polite girl thanks him for asking, replying that her master is doing wonderfully, and the big guy nods, glad to hear the good news. He then opens her beaker of enchanting blue potion, releasing a tantalizing aroma that looks incredibly promising. The shy young girl smiles sweetly, holding her hands behind her back and blushing slightly from the high praise. The vice president remarks that her mixture is exceptionally pure, grading it a C-rank energy potion. Fuelin proudly thinks to herself that she hasn't let her master down and has fully accomplished her mission. The onlookers are completely blown away, and she knows this victory is the fruit of her grueling training. She finished her potion way faster, proving they stood no chance. Meanwhile, the relaxed Tsukushiro admitted a rank C- elixir was pretty solid, but behaved as if he had surpassed her. Soon, the calm president approached him. Doug, who announced it was finally time to show off his own progress. The old man asked what he thought of the outcome, so the boy nervously scratched his head and murmured he just did his best. Everyone noticed his insecurity, assuming he had only managed to brew a rank D potion at best. The focused examiner noted his solid effort and decided it was finally time to check the rank of the brew. In an instant, the wooden stoppers shot right off the bottles, then boom, a dazzling bolt of lightning strikes. A completely stunned Doug never expected a supernatural event like this during a simple test. Seriously, how do you even react to that? Mouth agape, the vice president declared that any brew causing this must be at least rank B. Stunned by the news, Fuelin watched with her mouth hanging wide open, recalling that only someone as legendary as Master Kevin could produce such a high-rank potion. Nearby, the deflated beastmen stood frozen, trembling. They practically drooled as they caught the rich scent. The examiner emphasized its incredible rich flavor, flawless purity, and that mystical lightning. Turning to Els Pig, he admitted they were wrong, and honestly, this kid might be even more terrifying than Kevin. It was now completely clear that Tsukushiro had without a doubt secured first place in the shaman exam, though the exhausted teen barely had any energy left to celebrate. Meanwhile, a highly anxious Sakura still waited anxiously at the entrance. She was extremely worried about her master, constantly asking the bypassers if the young man had finally emerged. Just then, her cheerful companion called out to her, having spent several minutes searching through the massive crowd of beastmen just to locate where she was waiting. The relieved girl pouted, complaining that he took forever, and she was seriously worried. He gently apologized for making her wait, adding that the exam was finally over. Prompting the blue-eyed girl to quickly ask how it all went, he grinned, announcing he took first place, which made his little helper incredibly happy. Holding the rare, unprocessed cardiola plant in his hands, Doug asked if he truly wanted to refine it himself. The young man explained he needed the boost, and the president gladly agreed to support him. A giggling Els Pig then stepped up and asked who had taught him alchemy, claiming it was impossible to learn without a master. With a deadpan look, Tsukushiro replied that no one taught him a thing and that he figured it all out alone. The stunned leaders could hardly believe it. Entirely self-taught, they felt utterly miserable. By comparison, soon the president promised him a special shaman outfit. Once the cardiola processing was complete, our hero and his companion walked away, leaving a deeply devastated Fuelin standing in disbelief. The deeply humiliated girl softly apologized to Master Kevin, who was not even standing next to her, for losing to someone she looked down on. Her muttered words were caught by Sakura, who instantly turned right around. The legendary shaman's name instantly made the room fall dead serious. Right at that moment, Charming realized right away that the beast girl was Kevin's apprentice. Her tense behavior caught Sayoshi's eye. He immediately wanted to ask her what was wrong. Charming, however, pretended everything was fine, claiming she was merely lost in her own thoughts. That was when our hero told them that another target was waiting for them after this processing, so they had to move. Meanwhile, a visibly stressed Fuelin was left standing by the counter, while the rest of the group kept following the president. Before long, they finally reached the ritual chamber, where Doug began The process of refining the precious Cardioli's gem, chanting ancient spells, he called upon the guardian of the four elements to reshape the stone, Ills. Pig suddenly warned that the Cardioli's was saturated with dark energy, meaning a unique ritual was required, which Doug would personally oversee. Hearing the spell, Suyoshi was completely amazed, but Sakura noted that more powerful spells require longer times to cast. Meanwhile, the deeply focused shaman concentrated, commanding that new vibrant life entered directly into the gem. After a few seconds, he declared that now only Suyoshi could activate the stone, and the young man called the process impressive. Doug explained that these gems come in low, medium, and high tiers, and many die hunting for trash, but Suyoshi scored a solid mid-level stone. Our hero realized that the experience points he would earn inside the dark zones would skyrocket, and Doug added that greater danger always yields much better loot. From his own years of experience, the head shaman warned that a proper team needed a tank, 2 warriors, 2 mages, and a healer. Asking how many were going, a slightly shy Suyoshi replied that there were actually only 2 of them. Sakura quickly added that she did not count since her presence would just split her master's hard-earned experience points right in half. The completely shocked vice president and his colleague turned to Suyoshi, asking if he was seriously planning to brave the dark zone alone. Talk about crazy. They then led him to the gateway of shadows. It would spawn brand new monsters every time he stepped inside, with a strict limit of only 3 entries. The elder added that once he entered, escape was impossible. He would have to either slaughter every last monster or wait out the clock until his time limit expired. A stout guild worker chimed in, noting that if he died, his lifeless body would just be spat out, while a slightly nervous Suyoshi insisted that would not happen. Sakura announced she had used her newly earned coins to buy supplies, urging the young wizard to grab the potions he might need. Accepting the stuffed bag of remedies, Suyoshi smiled and thanked his thoughtful assistant, telling her to just wait patiently for him to return. But the skeptical guild president wondered how he would cast spells without his staff, having already returned it, and offered to let him borrow it again. Our bold warrior simply smirked, thanking the elder while confidently explaining that he wouldn't need a magic staff anymore. With that, the daring youth slung a massive greatsword onto his shoulder, declaring that as a warrior, fear was completely foreign to him. Without hesitating for even a second, he stepped right into the swirling portal, while his anxious companion pleaded with him to be careful. A completely shocked Pig could barely comprehend that the kid was a warrior, and Doug marveled that despite his martial focus, he still possessed such incredibly sharp magic talent. The old man grew deeply curious about what this guy could accomplish, preparing to eagerly await the final results. Meanwhile, Tsuyoshi steps directly into the dark zone, immediately realizing that he has to wipe out these monsters as fast as possible since time is running out. Bloodthirsty dark wolves with razor-sharp claws are currently busy devouring some fresh carcasses scattered on the ground. Watching from the bushes, our hero realizes that he cannot let them surround him or underestimate their insanely fast attacks. To wrap this up immediately, the warrior makes a quick choice to increase his offensive power using raw physical strength, boosting the sheer force of his arms instantly. Leaping high into the air with a decisive jump, the fierce fighter barks at the wolves to stop snarling their ugly teeth. He quickly activates his Thunder Chain skill, instantly paralyzing his savage targets before they can even make a single move against him. Our hero earns 500 experience points, which is a pretty solid start. Grinning, the excited teen notes that back home, he gets the exact same payout for beating regular monsters, meaning rewards are way higher in this world. He keeps swinging his heavy blade, confidently muttering that he will return home very soon once he levels up a bit more. The dark wolves collapse one by one under his slashes, showing his elite combat skills. However, the paralyzing shock from his skill wears off incredibly fast, forcing Tsuyoshi to realize how oppressive this heavy darkness really is, making these wolves far tougher than ordinary dungeon beasts. Their movement speed is unreal, and if our hero reacts even a split second too late, he is done for. Suddenly, a beast blocks his incoming strike, making his face tighten with concern, but he remains calm. Even worse, though, one wolf strategically covers for its partner, pulling off a surprisingly clever and coordinated team defensive maneuver. To counter this, he decides to finally unleash his absolute form, heavily boosting his speed and combat power. The young fighter begins swinging his blade in wild arcs, landing lethal, pinpoint strikes on the irritated beasts. With a confident smirk, he declares that at this incredibly fast pace, he will easily reach level 7 on his very first attempt. Right outside the dimensional gate, Doug looks over at a deeply anxious Sakura, asking if she is worried about their leader. He notes that this is his very first time seeing anyone brave the dark zone completely solo unless they possess godly power. The blue-eyed girl firmly declares her absolute trust in Suyoshi, confident he can survive. Meanwhile, Sane mentions he has seen countless people die from raw arrogance, and going head-to-head against a brutal boss alone is basically suicide, walking away from them. He prays the foolish rookie regains his senses, while a furious Sakura simply glares at his back in silence. Back inside, the exhausted Tsuyoshi finally halts his onslaught after an incredibly long, grueling battle. His physical energy and mental focus are totally drained, and fatigue weighs heavily on his aching limbs. He pulls out some basic energy and stamina recovery drinks from his belt pouch. The sweating warrior quickly chugs the replenishing potion down, gradually catching his breath and restoring his combat readiness. But suddenly, tasting the vile stuff, he instantly spat out the nasty blue gunk. It was completely undrinkable, yet his stamina and willpower fully recovered anyway. Wiping his mouth, Suyoshi muttered that he just had to keep pushing. Meanwhile, his loyal assistant and the Magic Association president waited together. They stood at the portal entrance, anxiously anticipating his return soon enough. The beautiful assistant asked Doug if he would stay or go about his day. The elder admitted he was worried, not knowing if the young man would make it back safely, yet he still remembered how Suyoshi had so confidently called himself a true warrior before crossing into that other world. The president knew he was a skilled warrior who passed the test to harvest cardiolilies and craft prime potions. Suddenly, Doug heard strange noises echoing from the portal, which felt quite alarming. The cute assistant with blue eyes instantly recognized the sound of a master skill she completely trusted. With absolute confidence, she calmly noted that as long as they heard those attacks, they could rest assured that Suyoshi was still alive. Meanwhile, our strong hero was still deep in the dark zone, leaping high to swing his massive blade at a pack of level 10 wolves. His lightning strike didn't even give the beasts time to realize what happened. Every single one of them was wiped out in the blink of an eye. After pulling in tons of experience points, Suyoshi muttered that only the massive wolf boss remained. Wiping the heavy sweat from his face, he admitted he was pretty tired, but he had finally reached the toughest stretch where he could reach level 7. Staring up at the massive door, Suyoshi caught himself thinking that he really needed a quick break before the final battle. They decided to rest right on the cold stone steps to drink a potion and recover. The recovery capsules from his old world tasted great, but these fantasy potions were far more potent despite their utterly repulsive flavor. Soon his power was completely back, prompting our warrior to sling his heavy sword over his shoulder. He was ready to put on a show. Striding forward, he approached the massive door blocking the inner chamber where the final boss waited. That very second, the gate ground open, and Suyoshi stepped inside without a shred of hesitation, trying to spot his foe in the thick darkness. At first, everything was pitch black, so the young hunter slowly moved deeper, dragging his massive blade right behind him. Before long, his eyes locked onto a massive figure looming in the gloom. Its beastly frame was pure muscle, claws gripping a wicked razor-sharp weapon. This final boss was a terrifying, bloodthirsty wolf warrior who stood perfectly still, trying to remain perfectly composed. Suyoshi scanned its stats, realizing this beast ruled the entire Shadow Zone, boasting a level far higher than any basic lackey. Standing in the dark, the monster looked ready for a brutal clash, locking its fierce gaze on the intruder. Suddenly, the beast made a blinding leap with a skill that put the confident hunter on high alert. Just a moment ago, the fearless Suyoshi was grinning, but now his expression completely tightened. Feeling quite uneasy, he watched as the bloodthirsty wolf whipped out a heavy chain to bind his movements and drag him close. Its overwhelming strength and unreal speed completely overpowered our stressed warrior as he struggled to hold it back. Sword onslaught, the massive beast closes in and stares right into his eyes, trying to mentally crush his spirit. Suddenly, Tsoshi's body begins to violently shake. Is this an active skill from